We'll start streaming. Stream. That's working. Okay, that is working. Cool. Really poor though.
Yeah, I was noticing the quality is a little off on my side as well when it was happening.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it now, and I think it's a bit better, but how's it looking for you?
Let me check. Oh, quality's much better.
Okay, good. Nice, nice. Oh, Bagram. Hello, you're the best. Ukraine is watching you. Thank you, Bagram. Welcome. I was having okay, right. My girlfriend's in the other room on the Wi-Fi having a call with her boss. So we're both having issues. I
That'll
think it
lead
was
to it
just
real quick.
yeah. Okay, cool. So I think we're back. I think everything is online. We're doing good. Stream is up and fine. Okay, we can just continue where we left off. So yeah, essentially, just to give you a little context, yes, we've made all this progress. I've got an army in London that I'm going to be kind of stationing to see if Kent, moves around, see if they get a little bit threatening. They have a little army here led by their king, Chad, because I killed their king, and yeah.
It's funny. One of the first things I do typically is swing through. It's actually kind of like your strat, because I always end up sort of boxed into that corner whenever I try it.
Yeah, usually the first time I did it, I went through this corner as well, and it's very easy to get boxed in by Wessex, by Kent, by Essex, and you go into war with a number of factions here that can just beeline for you. But I think going down the middle has a bit more wiggle room and does make things a little more interesting as well. Multiple fronts, you have to kind of consolidate with your armies, place them in kind of strategic areas and fend off those initial armies, which we managed to do. So that's where we're at right now. But yeah, so
using
tell me
the
a little
Thames
bit.
as a natural border is quite handy.
Thames.
Thames.
Oh, Thames. Right.
Thames, sorry.
That will be. Where is that exactly? I'm just looking for it.
Should be directly below London. There's gonna be a little blue line right there. It's funny. There's a lot more going on the Thrones of Britannia map than first meets the eye. Like there's a lot of mountain passes and swamps and rivers that are dividing up the map. But because they're not quite as visually prominent as something like in Warhammer 3, where they're exaggerated, you don't initially notice them. But there's several areas you just can't pass through that are sort of funneling your armies. And the river, the Thames River is one of them. That's
true, right.
Useful early game is the Normans.
Definitely, you're talking about the Thames here. Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. The geography of TOB is quite interesting. Definitely. So yeah, tell me a little bit
when they
about
made it.
your.
The whole game is. I apologize.
Sorry.
There's like I guess like a 5-second delay, I think is what's happening right now. And so it's throwing it off a little bit. So I do apologize if I'm talking over you. It's not intentional.
No worries. It sounds like a little bit. No worries. All good. Tell me a little bit about your kind of development behind the mod. What were you thinking when you developed it? You spoke a little bit about the kind of what you were aiming for, and the kind of unit reskins you were going for, etc. But yeah, tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so as you said, this was originally developed when it became clear there was going to be no additional DLC for Thrones of Britannia. And it's a real shame. Obviously I'm a big fan of the game, even when it first came out. And it eventually got handed off to Cia Sophia for additional work after the work of Jack Lusted and his team.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of speculation here, but as far as I can tell, only about 20 people probably made this game. It was very much a small team that worked on it, a very core group, much like the Warhammer DLC team's working now. I mean, it's just very much a labor of love. And I think that when you go through the files of the game, which you have to do when you're modding, you really go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I was just constantly astounded at the level of love and detail going through into this game. Like, if you ever play the Picts in the base campaign, every single name is pulled from a very specific list of Pictish kings. that was made sometime in the 800s. Like it's like you have to do the research, and they really did it. And I've always
very
been
cool.
so astounded by that.
Wow, I like it. I like it. Interesting.
But you're talking about how great the campaign map looks, and the whole thing is made off of geographical information system data, so like survey maps and things like that. So they imported all that in there to try their best to give an accurate, creation of the borders and the humps and bumps of England. As for me and why I made what I was going to do, as I said, it was clear the DLC wasn't else. There was definitely a plan to make North Leode playable at some point. They just never did because a lot of its files are in there. Same thing with the Normans. A lot of the files are in there ready to go, and it was clearly just they need a little more polishing, and they would have been playable as an individual faction. But that just never happened. The first version of this mod is actually the playable Normans mod on Total War, which is on Thrones, and it was exceptionally popular at the time. It is a crap mod because it doesn't work very well. Because Thrones is a real treat to have to mod. The asset kit, which is how you build the world, it's an official tool created by Creative Assembly, didn't work for like 2 years. Just didn't work because it hadn't been supported, right? Wow. And that makes it really difficult to modify a game if the thing you have to use doesn't work. Eventually, some people found some workarounds. The guys on the Shield Wall team, who I worked with, did a little historical advice and things like that. I have a master's degree in archaeology for media, by the way, and my specialization, my dissertation was on depictions of early medieval combat, specifically, leading up to the Battle of Hastings. I actually wrote a paper for a doctoral application paper. It was like 20 or so pages on the Battle of Hastings, called A Largely Bloodless Battle, which it's kind of funny to say all that now. It's completely useless information, but it's just sort of interesting to see the trajectory to making something like this, and wanting to try and find a way for people to interface with that, history in a way that's playable and interactable. And that was sort of the inspiration behind the mod is, if I was going to make a DLC, this is what I would make. And, if I could rule the world sort of situation.
Yeah, fair enough. That's very cool. I mean, it's very I like that you did this as well. You saw that CA probably wasn't going to be making a DLC for the public, and you took that into your own hands to learn, even if you didn't have the tools ready, working to then work with the team to help them, the Shield Wall team, to help them with their mod, and then I guess from there, you learned a bit more about modding and TOB modding as well to be able to do this, which is really quite cool. How do you feel about Shield Wall, by the way? A lot of people I know feel it is the DEI of Thrones of Britannia, so there's a lot more depth to it mechanically on the campaign. I know it's kind of unfinished because they only did really a couple of the factions fully, and the rest of them were left, essentially. But yeah, what do you think about Shield Wall and other mods for Thrones of Britannia? I would love to pick your brain.
Are there other mods for Thrones of Britannia?
There are.
That's, part of the problem with Thrones of Britannia is not very.
True.
Yeah, you know what
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
As far as overhaul and stuff like that. It's, because the asset kit didn't work, and I think that really did hurt it in the long term. It's so difficult to mod Thrones because of the way they've done the recruitment system, which is it's based on the mercenaries in other games. So like in other games, you go into a region, you can recruit a mercenary. So you can't add units the way you could in, like, say, Rome 2 or Attila, which is what this is coming after. And so people were using those same methods, and the game wouldn't launch because it has to be tied back to that kit again that didn't work. And so that really caused a lot of problems for people. So like if you get a unit mod and another unit mod and both install them at the same time, your game will crash.
Yeah,
because it's just a limitation of Thrones modding.
Right.
Yeah, I think the Divide et Impera comparison for Shield Wall is very apt. I mean, that's clearly what they're going for: increased levels of complexity. I obviously like Shield Wall. Like I said, I was glad to give some advice on it when the time comes. I was one of the people that suggested the rework of how the feared system works based on seasonal recruitment and terms of service and things like that. That was a conversation between me and Drunk Flamingo, kind of going in there, and they obviously did something with it. He's a brilliant modder, and unfortunately was also sort of the driving force behind the mod. And I do not expect Shield Wall to ever be finished, which is a very common thing with mods, unfortunately, especially of that depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
This Conquest 166 is just me. It's just that's why it's not too crazy deep. I'll admit, there's a lot of mechanics I wish I could have done more with in here and really pushed a bit further. But like the icons right there of the two lions and the Wessex dragon, I can draw all day long. I love doing that. But when you start having to get into the deeps of the programming and the C# and the Lua and the database files, it definitely presents a limitation. It's a whole other language at that point, and Shieldwall was very lucky to have a couple people on their team that could do that, and I think you could see some really cool mechanics from that, especially their North Leode mechanic, which is the collection of books from the Abbey. Like, their Lindisfarne Abbey got raided, so like you're trying to recollect the lost knowledge. I thought that was a fun idea.
Right, yeah, definitely, absolutely. Very cool, very cool. And a little while ago, I think it was last year, the last time we talked about 1066, you spoke a little bit about how you'd like to come back to it sometime. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. Are you still thinking about it? Or?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, it's funny. I've heard the classic saying, a painting is never finished. The artist just stops working on it. And I think that was very true with Thrones. Like, there's always things I wanted to add to this. Not least, for the Normans, I added the Mon Bailey building chain and the White Tower as a unique landmark in this. And I wanted to have in-game versions of both of those. And I never could quite get it to work because the asset editor from Hero, that kit that people use for Warhammer 3, didn't exist yet at the time. And so making new items and getting them into the game was quite difficult. But now, obviously, it's very doable and something I would like to go back into. The team that does 878 AD, which is a mod for Attila, they've also done like a 1065 mod, I think.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, I spoke with those guys when they were working on all that stuff. They kind of came up after this one had made, and they have beautiful assets of both of those. And at one point, they said they were going to port those over and make like a sub mod for mine because you can just tack that stuff on. I guess that didn't happen. That's one of the weird things sort of about modding. It's such a collaborative thing where you're always having to draw on the knowledge of other people because it's so little of it is documented. It's very much you have to just find someone who kind of knows, ask a question, and then make 30 mistakes. So it's incredibly frustrating to start with.
Imagine.
I think this mod took maybe 9 months to make. And if I did it now, I probably could do it in about 3 or so. But just having to stumble your way through this stuff and figure it out. Let's see. Looks like you have. Are you using the Norman melees, the ones that are the skirmish cavalry?
I am using, yes, the Norman melees and the Norman knights I've got as well.
Yeah. So, and that was one of the sort of decisions. It's so much of these are giant overhauls in the entire game. And I think the core bones of Thrones actually works really well. That's why I like it so much. And the idea was for this, it's like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I just want to add 2 new units for every faction you can play. One plays to the strength they already have. And then the second one, the late one you get later in the game, will sort of fill in a weakness, right? So one encourages a play style, one fills in an obvious weakness you're going to encounter. And for the Normans, giving them that cavalry that also has the ability to skirmish. You run up, you throw a javelin, you run away, but they're also pretty decent in melee. They're just not that heavy shock cavalry. I really love that unit because if you see the Bayou Tapestry, that's what they're doing. They're riding up, chucking that spear, turning around, reloading, and come back again. So I love seeing that in game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a huge fan of skirmisher cav. I think in like Rome 2 and Attila, having a couple of those on your side versus an enemy army in an open field battle is a huge game changer because you can draw units away and harass other units and then be able to charge them in if they have enough armor and charging power and speed. So they're always very interesting, versatile units to have on your army, for sure. Nice.
Yeah, and this is something I asked you about earlier. It's like, you obviously have been playing this game a number of times, and it's funny, I messaged you because I will see when you start playing the game because people will suddenly reinstall the mod again and they'll ask me questions about it. So, as you've played it a good deal, what's the kind of stuff that you want to see more of? I mean, I have the option to go in there and possibly change some things. So it's like, what's some things you like, that you don't, things you'd love to see? I'd love to hear from someone who's played the game extensively.
It's such a difficult question to answer, to be honest. Hold on, I'm just going to turn down the volume a little bit more. Or actually, I'll turn down the music specifically. Yeah, it's such a difficult question because if it were up to players, we would ask for everything, there's so much that you can do through modding. The potential is limitless, and what people like me and players don't really understand is there is a hard limit on the effort of what modders can do. So you have to essentially pick and choose what you can and want to work on, what's going to have the biggest impact on your enjoyment of the mod, but also players and what they'd like to see, and how they're playing the game essentially. So it's a difficult question to answer because I know both sides. Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest, most interesting thing about Conquest 1066 is the new setting for TOB, having a new start date, new factions and starting positions, circumstances for various factions. All of that for me is the most interesting part about a big overhaul mod like this. So if it were up to me and you were just doing a patch, I would probably work on, just as you've done here for the Normans, a huge kind of effort into making them a little more interesting from a building tree perspective, having a couple more units here that are a bit more historical, and that you can, see in historical pieces of evidence, etc. If you can do that for other factions like them. I'm not sure I actually know this. I've only played as the Normans in 1066. Have you done that kind of thing for other factions in the mod as well?
Yeah, every faction you can play got 2 new units, so that same idea is applied to all of them. So for the Normans, their specialty, they get the crossbowmen, which are just sort of in their initial roster, but their second unit is the Breton mercenaries. So they're just sort of axeman unit, low-tier axemen. They can upgrade with you. The idea being that at the Battle of Hastings, the entire left flank was Breton. It was a multinational force, and so it's trying to reflect the fact that you're recruiting from other people. But yeah, everybody has that. So for the Saxons, I'm sorry, not the Saxons, England, England, under Harold Godwinson, I give you an additional 200 axe unit and an additional heavy spear unit. So both these are really heavy, slow defensive units, trying to encourage you to use that shield wall and to withstand these charges.
Okay, right.
The Harold Hardrada, which is an interesting campaign, it's a little harder in my opinion. I think Harold Hardrada has probably got the hardest campaign. He gets another level of Berserker and the Oath Ring troops, which basically are unbreakable because it's one of those things that happens around him. His sworn guard refuses to leave, so trying to reflect the guy on the bridge and all that. Trying to draw inspiration from this stuff to give you these units that sort of go into that play style again.
Right.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned the things people would want. Like the thing I wanted here that also ran into a limitation is I wanted to add the Norman coastline so badly, and the Norman supplies you get at the beginning are very much just me trying my best to make it work because I there was no way of doing it at the time. Yeah. And I think you've already covered some of the mods that are starting to change that, though. Is that right? With the new campaign maps.
Yeah, that's right. So there is an effort right now to port over, not really port, but use essentially the tool that the Dauntless Days team have built. I think it's called CAIME, CAIME. I don't know what the abbreviation stands for, but yeah, it's a tool that allows for modders to go into a map modding kind of view and be able to add terrain, new kind of hexagons on the entire campaign map to add new land and then add cities, settlements, things like that. So I know that modders are doing that for Thrones of Britannia right now to add the northern coast of France. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen an image where someone had gotten it done. It's still internal to the CAIME team, though. This is not a public tool. It's still very much held by the Dauntless Days team. It's not something anyone can play with yet. They've been a little guarded with it, frankly, to put it politely. Yeah. Like I said, I've seen a version where the northern coastline is, clearly in there with, the cities and stuff that they did as a test, and then it's like, cool, we'd love to play with that. And then so that's part of things like that. Is that's why I was saying, if you're part of a big team or a small team, I kind of chose to just work by myself because I've been a part of a lot of projects that have fallen apart in the long run. You hope things like the Dawnless Days will eventually get released, but how many years has it been at this point? So clearly they're getting closer, but that's a really cool technology. The biggest, along that same thing, the technology available has changed significantly. Asset editor, which I was mentioning earlier. I'm sorry, Rusted Pack File Manager. Those are the two big things you use when you edit Total War, by the way, is RPFM and Asset Editor.
Yeah.
RPFM, recently, the guys behind the Caesar and Britannia mod have made it so you don't have to use the asset kit anymore. You can actually edit it directly through RPFM. So all the problems I was running into with that tool that didn't work for 2 years, they have all that functionality built into RPFM now, and that is huge.
Right.
That's the thing that more than anything else has made me want to go back and try and mod Thrones again, because that takes so much of the headache out of it, is when you don't have to deal with this archaic tacked on program from, I think, Napoleon, maybe, or Shogun. Like, that's how old that tool is, and it's
really,
it's
that old. Damn.
I mean, it's at least Rome 2. I know the interface is like, it's virtually unchanged.
Wow. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, okay, so if, for example, hypothetically, a kind of northern coast of France was added in via modders, would you do anything with it in your kind of playing around with the next patch for Conquest, or not really, do you think?
I would not be able to help myself. I would immediately give the Normans a starting position down there. Like, that's one of those things that it's I wanted that so badly, and I think it's such a more eloquent solution than what you're seeing here with the Norman supplies. Like, what I really wanted to do is to give everyone sort of an early game difficulty. I wanted to set it in something closer to 1063, where, initially you have to go over and you have to fight Brittany, and then go make your invasion if you're the Normans, or if you're have to deal with the problem in some uprisings in Wales before, trying to give you a bit of a run up before just boom, you're being invaded from 4 fronts.
Yeah.
But that's just part of it there. Yeah.
Okay. How would that affect the Norman campaign at the start then? Because obviously they'd have a bit of territory potentially in the northern side of France.
Ideally, it gives you sort of a fallback point. Currently, I'm depending on the Norman supplies to give you food. Like, the way Thrones of Britannia works is you have to have food to recruit people, and since all of their territories are technically off map, there's sort of a limit to what you can bring with you at the start. Like, I don't want to give you unlimited food if you're playing as the Normans, because basically it's just easy cheat mode. That's why I give you, I think it's 15 turns worth when you start the game. So eventually you have to make a choice, minimize your army or try and push, but encouraging that aggression. And I think giving them a starting position down there, you have the ability to sort of fall back, but also it means that if, you have problems with Brittany raiding your territory back in the homeland, you're gonna start, it's more difficult for the Normans in a way, right? Like, on the one hand, you get an easier invasion fleet, but on the other, you have to defend home territories. It's just I'd be curious to see it play. I'll put it that way.
Interesting, yeah, because one of the other mods that I'm quite interested in getting a bit more into, they're still quite far into early development, essentially, and it's not really ready, but there's a mod for Attila's Age of Charlemagne campaign called Anno Domini 1051, and it's kind of similar in that, you've got you've got William the Conqueror, you've got a Norman invasion potentially if you play as the Normans into Britain, but it's the Age of Charlemagne map, so you've got all the other factions there as well. There's a lot of interesting little kingdoms that are trying to take pieces of you. You're almost forced out of northern France to invade Britain. It's almost encouraged to do that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how you would go about it in terms of those other cultures present now. Do the Normans manage to keep their territory there, or would it be easy enough to just fall back to essentially the campaign whenever you're being squashed in Britain?
The Anno Domini folks are the ones I was mentioning earlier who have made the Mott and Bailey castles and the White Tower for their mod.
Yeah.
And theoretically, we're going to port it over to Thrones as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's funny when you deal with maps. So while working on this one, once I finished 1066, I actually started working on an Age of Arthur mod, and got far enough in that I was doing map work and starting to port over some Attila assets before I just threw my hands up in frustration with dealing with their tools. But it was definitely you can keep sort of zooming out on a map of this era, and eventually you sort of have to give yourself an artificial boundary. And I think the solution of, Normandy had beaten France in 2 different little battles in the early 1050s, and so they were very much at peace. There was not a concern about France invading from the south into Normandy at this point. The real problems were Brittany to the west and Flanders to the east, and that's why they brought both those guys along onto these sort of as vassals into this invasion of England. It keeps everybody busy. So I think it's a pretty fun little. It's a very obvious little kind of boundary to draw right there. It's like France is not really going to be involved in this fight. Ironically, though, Scandinavia and Denmark very much involved in this, but that'd be very odd to try and squeeze that into the edge of the map. The top corner up there. So there's always sort of that artificial line you have to draw. Do you stick with the high realism of the exact borders of England, or do you try and do something more stylized so the mountains become more obvious, that the swamps become more obvious? And I didn't realize you have to make these decisions until I was developing my own stuff, after this. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, there's a lot of choices being made here that you don't think about the impact until much further down the line.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a really good point. I mean, that's kind of going back to what I was talking about. If you could do everything, you absolutely would. If you had the resources, the time, the team, the kind of coordination, everybody on the same page, you've got the tools, and it's, you can do it. You would, but there is definitely you have to set a kind of border and tell yourself, right, this is realistically what I can achieve in terms of getting that historical kind of feel and authenticity to it, while making it fun to play and not really going and biting too much off of, getting too much to, oh my God, I'm totally screwing up this saying.
Biting off more than you can chew.
Yes, thank you. Biting off more than you can chew. Exactly. Which is a lot of what modders go through. As you were saying earlier, with the Caesar and Britannia is such an ambitious mod. It's very early days. There's a lot to do there, but it's just starting up. And mod. Yeah.
I just want to say this. So the Anno 1051 mod started right after Thrones released in 2018, and I did all of their unit cards in the Bayeux Tapestry style. I did every single unit in the game. I did a Bayeux Tapestry style.
That's wild. Oh, and dude, that is insane. Actually, just to interrupt you, because I am doing a 1051 mod video for tomorrow, and I've been looking at these unit cards specifically, thinking they are so good. So and they remind me of the tapestry so much. I wonder who did them. So that's
I did
cool.
the original ones, and this was 8 years ago now. No, 5 years ago now. I don't know, a couple years ago now.
Right.
I did the original ones, and that's a mod that it fell apart, right? The guy that was in charge of it eventually moved on, did something else. And because of that, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to make my own thing now. And I made this one for Conquest because I was like, I know the information. Why wouldn't I? But later on, another guy picked it back up and they kept running with the ball. And so it's a different team now that's reusing those same assets. So I don't know what is left of my original stuff in there. That would be, that'd be really curious.
Interesting.
To play sort of the finished version of it.
Yeah, definitely. You should check it out if you have time. There is a lot of really interesting progress being made on it, and like you were saying, they're doing a lot of effort into building models and assets that are custom made, trying to bring the kind of the general city battle siege section of the experience a lot more authentic with medieval looking cities. So it is quite cool.
So I see you're pushing in from the bottom right down there. Did Harold Godwinson pretty much attack you right when you landed, or within about 5 turns of it?
Yeah, he did.
How'd that go?
I landed here in Pevensey. I took Hastings and Lewis, and then Harold Godwinson came rushing through. We had a little battle here, and he was killed right off the bat, first battle.
Yeah, hopefully, sometimes that triggers a realm divide, and obviously internal civil war. Sometimes it doesn't. Hopefully they do recoup. Have you noticed a lot of sort of skirmishing along the borders, or people coming in to raid your small settlements and back out again?
Yeah, absolutely. So Wessex does a lot of that. They sent a kind of a small 2-3 unit force along the coast as a naval, kind of incursion through to try and take Pevensey and Lua, try and take these smaller towns, and you see the same everywhere. I mean, most factions, I feel like, that you're enemies with in TOB, mod or not, you'll have little armies here and there that just take an opportunity to try and come through and cause some issues.
So this is a design thing. That's actually turned up slightly for this mod. There's a priority list for AI. It's like, hey, what should you be concentrating on? And instead of capturing territory, I've put it where I believe it was slightly higher for rating. So sort of like a priority for what you're going to do. So it's go in, take a small thing, back out. Don't necessarily try and deep dive and attack the player. There's what's called a player bias, where they try and rush in and fight you sometimes. So you got to watch out for that and tweak accordingly. But that's interesting. One of the main comments I get for this mod, and for Thrones of Britannia in general, is is it compatible with a garrison mod? Because people are not used to losing territories. You know, they think, oh, this is my permanent holding. It's like, no, like it's they really want you to kind of organically fluctuate back and forth across the map on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I see that comment happen a lot more often than anything else. I think it's one of the most requested features for TOB, and I don't know if I agree with it, to be honest. Like, you had the Empire Total War, let's have a few towns dotted around, they pop up dynamically and you can do something with them, but you can't actually defend them, and armies can come in and raid them. They're not destroyed, they can't be they can't be taken by another faction, but they can be raided and sacked, and you have to repair them. And TOB kind of builds on that and adds a bit of balance to it. So you can't easily replenish your armies quickly. It's tied into that supply system, which your outlying towns really do the bulk of the work for you. And if you lose them, then, it's a cycle. It's a really nice, interesting balance. I think, for me anyway, on the campaign side of things, that's the one thing that TOB has a really good strength versus other games, actually.
TOB Thrones really is a throwback to that style. You can definitely see they're trying to think of Medieval 1, Empire, and try and bring back some of these old systems. Now, especially for the Normans, that's one advantage to the Mott and Bailey building chain, is I believe each one of those gives additional like garrison units and supplies, and so you can help stage your invasions a little better, because especially as a force coming in, it's hard to build up those farms and things that you're going to need. So it gives you sort of a quick little outpost if you want to do that, at the cost of, I think there was an upkeep I attached to it, because those things aren't free.
Yeah, of course. I think that's one of the things also the Caesar and Britannia team are looking into, having the legions of Caesar have a couple of forts here and there. That is an option to build up for garrisons to come in, replenish, and that being your base of operations in a new province. But if you need to, actually recruit new units, you have to go all the way back to your initial landing point. Which again is a quite cool way of looking at it.
I'd be curious if there's I've been talking with the guys in Caesar of Britannia. It's funny because I'm sort of the last modder standing who still knows how to mod Thrones of Britannia, so people will pop in occasionally and ask questions about how to do things, and I'm always trying to be helpful about it, because there's just not a lot of resources out there.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I'd be curious if they're trying to work in a system of federati. Are they finding a way to leverage the local tribes? Are they finding a way to recruit these, local, try and make alliances to push against the others? It's not like there was a united Britain against the Romans. They were definitely playing one tribe off the other and using them to help push their invasion inward.
It's a good question. I don't know. I know that recently they were playing around with the idea of, Caesar had his initial 5 legions land in Britain, and they campaigned, they progressed, and then they had a second invasion a couple of years later. And what they're thinking about doing is slowing down the turn time, not the turn times, the kind of turns per year to simulate the first couple years in a much longer period, harsher winters, etc., and then getting through that to get additional forces land in the second invasion, which tells me kind of having that area of recruitment, having a bit more mingling, kind of recruiting local tribes, etc., in the Conquest may not be as much of a feature, but I don't know. I mean,
And that's the thing is it's design decisions at the end of the day. You know, they're making choices about what they like to get here or there. Like you talk about
exactly.
extended turn times. This one's got 24 turns per year. You know, you
Okay.
see down the corner it's like early and late July,
Yeah.
just to help simulate the fact that this conflict happens very quickly.
Yeah. And I like that a lot, actually. I think having a lot of people, especially in mods, when you look at, Rome 2 Workshop, there are very few 12 turns per year mods out there. People don't really enjoy loads of turns per season because it's so debilitating. They have to think a bit more out of the box, right? Winter's coming. I need to prepare my, supplies and get this army fully replenished before this month, before I can then go on the advance in spring, which is in 10 turns. Like there's an amount of forward thinking that you have to do the more turns there are. But for a smaller scale like TOB, I think it actually works really, really well. There's a lot more movement going on, a lot more dynamism in terms of other armies coming in and sacking, retreating. These things can still happen in winter, and yet you still take the penalties over winter. So you need to be a bit more strategic. So it's faster paced, but it also leans a lot more to that strategy as well. The more turns there are, which is quite nice.
I generally like the smaller maps. I went back and played Shogun 2 last month and was astounded how much fun I was having. Especially with the mountain ranges, it becomes less abstract in a way. It's like, oh, this is a very real physical feature that I have to move around, and maybe we go through this valley and these passes. And the way the geography works helps to kind of push you in a way. Like, especially, if you're good to the point you're invading Wales in this game, which side of the mountains are you on? And they're finding the important fording points or the rivers, as you're trying to go into Wessex. You get an appreciation of how the geography helps to focus where these armies land and move. I don't have the ability to edit the campaign map, but one of the reasons they landed in Pevensey and Hastings is Hastings is a peninsula, and so it was a very easily fortified location, and they sort of just moved up to the bottleneck right there, and that's where the Battle of Hastings is at that bottleneck. They were trying to break back out of it, and Harold, that's one reason he rushed down, was to keep them bottlenecked into this location, so, keep them getting out.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Smaller scale games, I think there's definitely a place for them. Having them focused on a particular conflict or era, there's definitely value there. I think for a lot of historical players, there's just been a lot of the let's do a smaller scale in recent years, and not enough of the larger scale, empire building aspect of Total War. Just kind of almost leaning towards the conversation of, how is a saga versus a large scale? What is Pharaoh trying to do? And especially now towards its kind of dynasties update and what that means for a lot of historical players. That kind of convo, yeah, essentially.
Yeah, it was an interesting experiment on CA's part. I mean, Thrones was definitely, you can tell, was originally developed as a DLC. It's similar to Age of Charlemagne for Attila. And then I suspect someone had the conversation, Attila didn't sell super well. Is there a way we can make this a separate thing, sort of like Fall of the Samurai? And then it sort of just grew from there. I think when it released, how much is the game now? $30, probably $40, $39.99 if I had to guess.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, something like that, And realistically, I think $30 is an easy sell, $40 less so. And I think that they never quite found that sweet spot, so that by the time we get to Troy, which is, again, a similar small location, but with extra bells and whistles put on, $60 was a hard ask. And, same thing, I think that ran into the same problem with Pharaoh. It's like $60 again was a hard ask for a smaller scale, what feels almost like an expansion pack, to use a term for old people in the audience. Remember expansion packs? I loved expansions, man, because it's like, instead of like drip DLC.
Yeah, me too. I mean, every time, so I grew up in Istanbul, but I'd come back to Scotland to visit family in Glasgow. And every time I came back, we'd have a PC Gamer magazine at the airport, and you'd see like the latest Medieval 2 expansion. And it's just like, holy shit, it's a new Medieval 2 like
expansion.
Yeah, so so good the way it was done before. It's
So
good now,
that was
but
worth
yeah,
full price. You know, it's 4 different campaigns. It's still
yeah,
it's actually a lot like this. That was one of the inspirations for this. You know, the core unit troops really haven't changed much, but there's maybe 3 or 4 per faction that's been added on. So you may be playing Scotland again, but you know, in the Britannia campaign, but they've added a couple extra units to make it worth your time. But then packaging a couple of them together, so it's like, oh yeah, I feel the value here, right? Like I feel like I'm going to get additional big fun campaigns.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And that was a really interesting, unique excitement to get a Total War game for the first time and be like, wow, this is different. It's amazing. And you didn't really have any expectations to see more made for it, really. I mean, I didn't. And then suddenly to see they've done, you know, Follow the Samurai for Shogun 2 when it first came out. Holy shit. Like it was just a complete game changer for the game. It was very different, very unique, different take, and different warfare, same setting. It just, yeah, it was a very interesting time. But I guess that's the effect of the internet as well. You can see, you can have access to all this information. You can talk to so many people and, you know, speculate and think of more content to come out in the future. And it's a big part of the conversation. Whereas before you didn't have that kind of conversation.
Does this still say Here King right there?
It does, yeah.
Damn it. Yeah, that's one of those. So that's obviously it's funny. So to make the Normans work, the Normans are actually East Anglia with a reskin on top of them. So I replaced a lot of the existing East Anglia units and then redid everything to be Norman. But apparently I missed that one because it was supposed to be, instead of Here King, I think it was it's supposed to be basically be an invader mechanic. You know, do you support the English? Do you support the Normans? You know, who are you going to lean towards? I thought the Here King mechanic worked quite well for it because it's the same sort of concept. But I apparently missed that instance of the word Here King in the database tables. You have to replace all the text manually. So.
Okay, right, fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean the mechanic itself still works pretty well, at least in my view. Cool. Have you tried your hand at any other modding? I mean, I know you do a lot of content around Warhammer 3, for example. What do you think about modding on that game?
I've done visual mods for Warhammer 3. I've done a couple like reskins and things like that, just because, you know, it's funny. I'll make a video and I'm like, meh, I don't quite like the way they look, and then I'll redo them. I did a very significant. I got pretty far into a Bertrand the Brigand mod, who's sort of Robin Hood. You know, shockingly, that's the kind of I play Bretonia in Warhammer 3. Just play the Normans, except in a fantasy game. You know, really big into King Arthur and stuff like that, so not surprising. But
definitely.
yeah, I did a Bertrand the Brigand mod, who is sort of their version of Robin Hood, and I was trying to add some additional units to make it feel sort of like a DLC pack. And I got pretty far in, and Maffers released his Bertrand the Brigand, and I was like, oh, this does everything I wanted to do, so I guess I won't. And that's right. I sort of didn't after that. So I find the reskins work pretty well, but again, it's like these mods take months and months and months, and especially with Warhammer 3, there's a lot of compatibility stuff. Like there's a couple of big ones, like any of the Mixu stuff is so core to people's mod load order that you have to make sure you have cross compatibility, and that becomes a little difficult for just, you know, a guy who messes around with it and has fun.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely fair. I think most mods just generally now have always sections in their Steam Workshop pages about compatibility, because people are most of the time always using a different assortment of mods. They don't exactly know how load orders work and whether something is going to have a conflict with another one. So yeah, 100%. I think it's as I'm sure you would describe it, a bit of a minefield in terms of how to code this not to encroach on a mod that so many people work on, and so it's compatible, etc.
I mean, the big one, obviously, the elephant in the room is SFO, Seal Faith Overhaul, when it comes to Warhammer 3, that, you know, you have to make the decision whether or not it's going to work with SFO or not. And a lot of times you'll actually you'll need to release 2 different versions of a mod, one that's SFO compatible and one that's not. Because it is so large. And that's one of the cool things about modding. You know, you can change enough little things to basically tailor the game to play exactly how you want, which is super cool. That's always been my favorite part of it. I think I've been modding since Rome 1 because I didn't like the way the Spartan looked, and there was an official CA mod where you could change out the way the Spartan looked to look with a more classical version. And I remember distinctly the first time I ever swapped out something in game and thought it was just voodoo.
Wow, that's actually hilarious. Interesting. Um,
Yeah.
nice. Okay. I had a couple other questions for you I wanted to ask.
Go for it, yeah, man.
You know,
I'm just
you
like hanging
are.
out watching you play. It's nice.
Oh, thank you. You obviously do a lot more content on the Warhammer side of things at the moment, but tell me about your enjoyment of the historical Total Wars. You just mentioned you played Shogun 2 recently. What else do you play? What did you start with, maybe? And what's your
I've been
favorite
playing
era?
since Medieval 1. I did not play
Okay.
the first Shogun. I started playing from Medieval 1. I was not super into Japanese history at the time. You know, obviously
Okay.
by the time Shogun 2 came around, I was more interested.
Mhm.
I started my channel to provide historical context for like Rome 2 DLC. I would do historical context videos, Thrones of Britannia, historical
Right.
context videos. I cover Warhammer now because technically my channel is a Total War channel. I mean, that's what most of the content was around.
Mhm.
And that's where most of the people were. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate that, you know, the historical side has not been picked up as much by Total War as it has been previously, so it's not the focus.
Yeah.
And the views, unfortunately, are not there as well, which I find disappointing, to say the least.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a case where I love that stuff. It's still the games I typically play. You know, I enjoy that, you know, any kind of stuff. I was playing Sons of Valhalla yesterday. You ever played that before? The one's the side scroller, like kind of like Kingdom, but you can whack people with a sword.
No, I don't think I have actually.
It's fun. It's in the same wheelhouse. It's not strategy. I mean, it's strategy and like, you know, that you're controlling waves and stuff like that. And check it out. It's by Hooded Horse. You know,
Mhm.
it's fun. I'm sure
Okay.
you're aware
Nice.
of Hooded Horse now because they very much
Yeah.
inherited the historical game publisher that
Yeah.
grown. You know, that definitely is something they're focusing on with things like Manor Lords.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I think that historical games are a more niche market, and so Total War itself is moving into more broad appeal. You know, I'm sure you've heard the rumor of the Star Wars and things like that, and 40K,
Yeah.
and I would not be surprised to find out that both of those were true, just because it's a larger potential audience, you know, for the same amount of investment on their part.
Yeah.
So from a sheer business standpoint, yeah, I guess it makes sense. It unfortunately does leave people who enjoy the historical games sort of out in the cold.
Yeah.
But, you know, here nor there. It's funny that the lack of DLC for Thrones of Britannia, which I felt there were at least 4 or 5 in here, the little campaign packs, Scottish
Really?
rebellions to the 1290s, definitely. War of the
Oh.
Roses, possibly.
Oh my God.
King Arthur, and then the Roman invasions. I mean, those are the obvious ones that, you know, reusing that same map every time. Those are the ones that I was like, yeah, I want to see those. And so
Yeah.
I started building those initially, and I was like, the lack of Total War historical stuff actually encouraged me to learn real game design. I've been learning how to use Unity. I've been making my own stuff, drawing things, and trying to make my own game, you know, that captures those feelings and emotions for myself. Just because it's sort of like, just like for this mod, it's like, well, and even my YouTube channel, it's like, well, if nobody else is doing it, I guess I will. You know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
everyone, and that's why I always tell people, you know, especially YouTube or modding, it's like no one else is going to make it. Like, if you have the drive, go for it. You know, I mean, there's always a space for creativity and, you know, encouragement. I was a high school teacher for 10 years that taught video, by the way, so it's part of my
Okay.
mantra just in general to encourage people.
Wow. What did you teach in high school?
Film and video, weirdly enough, it had nothing to do with my degree in archaeology.
Okay.
It was, you know, it was during the recession, so I was like, I will teach anything
All right. Fair enough.
so long as it keeps me in a house. But yeah, you know, it's funny that I was teaching these kids how to make, you know, YouTube videos and all this, and eventually they're like, yeah, well, you know, you don't know how to do it. I'm like, sure I do, and I started releasing YouTube videos just to show that I could, just to sort of prove a point to them. I thought it was kind of funny.
That's amazing, actually. What an interesting origin to the channel.
Yeah, you know, and that's what I was saying. The original origin was I felt like, you know, they were releasing these really great DLC for Rome 2. That was when the Empire Divided DLC was coming out and the Rise of the Republic DLC were coming out.
Yeah.
And, you know, this stuff was coming out, but then you go to play the game, and unless you just know the history, there's no context. You know, you don't know who these people are. You know, one of the
Yeah.
videos I'm most proud of that I've ever made is the Rise of the Republic video on my channel. 30 minutes, you know, filmed like a documentary style, really goes in, makes some fun jokes, and just talks about, like, what's happening in the rise of Camillus and the Brennus's invasions and all that, and sort of like how this is a crucial point in Rome's history, and how it really changes the entire perception of what's going on there. So it was really cool to make that video, though. I'd love to make more stuff like that.
Yeah, you should. I remember watching it when it first came out. It was so long ago. I wasn't actually at the time playing Total War at all. But I saw that, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get back into my PC and yeah, basically get back into Total War, and then a few years later start making videos. So yeah, I think
I'm glad it had an impact on you.
Yeah, that's the Total War community. I feel like you're especially the historical side, because it is so niche. You often are inspired by lots of different people to get back into it, to play it. You see a mod here and there. You see a content creator making a really interesting documentary video about a new release. That's kind of the community aspect of it is really why I quite like the historical side of the series.
And just to have said this, I interviewed several of the guys working on Pharaoh at a couple points, for the various things. And, it's not a huge team at CASFE. I think it's like 80 people for the entire company, of which, 40 would be programmers, and, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller from there.
Okay,
but,
right.
The guys there are always super nice. I enjoyed chatting with them. But one of the guys in a sort of off to the side conversation was like, yeah, Rise of the Republic was one of the first DLCs they ever worked on, and seeing that video made, for them, that was the moment that something they had spent a year on made it feel like reality. And they were just, he said thank you. He's like, that, to see someone making something cool with something I worked on felt really great. Just like right now, that's just like, dude, I'd love to come on and chat on your channel for a minute, because I love that you're playing this. I love that something I spent months on, someone's getting enjoyment from, and then gets the desire to play more from it. That's a very cool feeling.
Yeah, definitely. I think with CA and devs especially, I don't know if, I'm sure you've read the Rome 2 dev interview about coming out about how it was developed, and various shortcomings and decision making processes, etc. But it just goes to show how siloed some developers are, and they don't actually see not just kind of the end product and their kind of contribution to that, but they don't exactly. It's so difficult to conceptualize when you can. What am I trying to get to? To not be able to see where that contribution is going, kind of removes you from the process, and when you see someone actually praising them, you become a tiny
cog in a very big machine.
Exactly, yeah, and to see that finally come into public eyes is the way you did it especially must have been very positive for them.
And that interview unfortunately does align with a lot of what I've heard about internal development procedures through CA, and I think it's important to note that it is a company at the end of the day, a large company with it was previously at 900 employees. Obviously it doesn't have that now, and so there was a very structured, tiered system, and so a lot of the people they're talking about are people in the C-suite. These are people that are making decisions coming down to the bottom, and that's one of the reasons I really enjoy talking to the CSOPA guys, and even Jack Lust did back in the day when he was working on Thrones. Is it just felt like, oh yeah, you're just a random dude, like with your guys, your team of 20 people, and you just happen to be chatting. It's kind of funny, but it's the upper level decisions do not necessarily reflect those of the people that are in the trenches every day coding and trying to make this stuff work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess on that
man.
kind
Hammer and Anvil, you got this. You're down to just cavalry.
Yeah.
Cycle charge it? I don't know, man. Like, that's the problem. Thrones is interesting because of the refusal to charge mechanic, which I really like. That, if it's a properly braced spear unit, the cavalry can't just plow through them, so you have to be a little tricky with your positioning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing with Thrones, and especially Attila, is if you try and cycle charge when you call the unit back, they will take casualties when retreating. So they'll get caught, and exactly. So it's very difficult to do in Thrones and Attila versus Rome 2, where it's actually much easier. Cavalry is generally very, very heavily armed. The units can't really turn around quickly, so it's much easier to do.
Now, generally, this is reusing a lot of assets inside of Thrones of Britannia in the Conquest 1066 mod, but there is one exception to that, which is when you see the highest tier of Norman cavalry or the most advanced English units that are the heavy spearmen. They have a longer hauberk, so it's like a hauberk that goes down to their knees, and a hauberk that goes down to their elbows, and like a little neck piece, like you see in the Bayeux Tapestry. So if you ever see those really high advanced units in here, or the special units, you'll notice they have a slightly different armor. Just one of the only original art pieces in this game as far as 3D models go, because it was not easy to do, and a gentleman did make that for me from, actually, I think the AD 1051 mod, so I ported that over from it because I was still working with them at the time.
Very nice. Interesting. Very cool. Okay. So yeah, just having a look at the campaign now. How are we doing? I think we've pushed Wessex back enough that they're just kind of going through public order issues, and haven't seen a large stack army in a while, so I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. My biggest, I think, generally with Thrones and smaller scale kind of saga games like this is I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. The replayability. I mean, you have a lot of factions that are quite similar in their kind of mechanics, their play style, their starting positions, because it's such a smaller scale. You know, playing one faction near Dover isn't going to be that different to playing another one near Winchester. So, you know, I'll play as the Normans right now, and I'll take over England, but I won't really have any incentive to play Wessex or Mercia next, really, versus playing as the Picts or a Viking invasion on the northeastern coast of Scotland. So it's very much you look at a larger scale Total War, and there are so many different cultures and different starting circumstances that you don't exactly have here. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a limitation of the design of Thrones of Britannia, as opposed to a limitation of historical titles. Personally, I think there is a could be, not should be, could be. Don't want to say a should. There's never a should thing. Game design is always, you know, choices and opinions at the end of the day. I think there's a significant difference between, say, a Pictish campaign versus a Norman's campaign, or a Scottish campaign in this case. And, you know, ideally, what you're aiming to do should be different enough. So in this one, the Harold Hardrada campaign is very much based on raiding. You're not necessarily meant to take large settlements. It's, you know, collect money, go down the coast, do all that kind of fun stuff. You know, the Wessex campaign is going to be much more defense-oriented. I compare it to the Western Roman Empire and Attila. You know, you're under assault on all corners, and you have to deal with public order issues. So ideally, the systems that you're playing with are different enough that it creates a different campaign, and it feels different. But I think that Thrones of Britannia actually suffers a bit from its unit design in a couple places, and this is something that I've really looked at in my own work since, is that by adding so many different types of units, like there's 4 different types of spearmen and axemen and light cavalry and heavy cavalry and archer, and then like all these different little pieces, they all sort of start to blend together. You know, you lack that sort of unique unit that makes someone stand out. You know, the thing that they had, the other ones didn't. You know, like the big thing for 1066 was the English had 2-handed axemen, the Huscarls, you know, very dedicated, very heavy, and those played a very distinct role in their combat. And especially when you're playing the Normans, you're very cavalry focused. You have reductions to cavalry cost. You have the missile cavalry you can run in with, and ideally that makes the battles play differently as well. Whereas the Saxons are going to have a much more limited cavalry roster. You know, ideally it does feel different there. The Scots in this game, I was never particularly happy with. Weirdly, I feel like they need to be a lot lighter, like in more ambush based, but they removed ambushes from Thrones of Britannia, and that's something that I was working with the Shield Wall guys to actually bring back, because so much of the Scots and the Welsh style of warfare in this period was based on ambushes. And you can't do that here, and that makes it a real problem. Like, you can't just skirmish, you know, the Norman cavalry and then disappear back into the woods. If you try and do that, you know, after the first 30 seconds, they're going to ride you down, which is unfortunate.
Did you ever manage to add that in with Shield Wall? I don't remember, actually.
No, so yeah, Shield Wall, they never got it quite working. Basically, they got it to proc the map, but then you have to build all the maps. So if if you have it set to ambush stance, and they got the ambush stance thing working, where they would kneel down, it would then be it when the campaign map happens. It has to select the campaign map, load it in, and go from there. And then I don't think we ever got anyone that knew how to build battle maps in to be able to set all that up the rest of the way. So like it's weird. Thrones of Britannia is sort of not a hatchet job. It was very much like cut off from Attila. That like, they went in and just like chop anything that wasn't necessary to be able to get it made, right? Like it's very streamlined because it's necessary for it to be streamlined. Otherwise, they couldn't have got it done with the team they had, I suspect. So I think a lot of stuff like that they got on the chopping block. I know that I gave him a bit of a hard time initially when the game released because the rivers aren't navigable. Like, you can't sail up the Thames. You can only sail so far up the Severn. You know, rivers are so important during this period, and it feels like they're not doing what they need to. Like, the waterways aren't working quite like I expected them to here, as far as major sources of travels and raid. But it's a great game. I like what it tried to do. These are limitations, obviously, to what they're trying to build. I think that's unfortunately related to the Total War formula, which they're sort of reusing here. It's just, you know, larger concepts of it. But as far as like a culture being different, like if they don't, the invading Normans would instantly know a Saxon for the most part, right? You know, same thing, like people know if they're a different culture there. There's something happening that they feel that they are different enough from each other. So if that's not being represented on screen, then maybe it's a design issue, right? Maybe it's something they can go back and, you know, maybe dial it up just a little bit. I hate to see, you know, I don't want to turn it into Flanderization where it's like, you know, gross caricatures, but there's definitely some cool stuff you can do to make people feel more unique, right? Like, I don't think I've ever played an Irish campaign in Thrones of Britannia.
No, I don't think I have either.
Right? It's just, it's not my cuppa, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, fine, whatever. But I've had to do a lot of research on Ireland for, you know, an Arthurian mod. And it's like, oh, wow, this is a very different kind of culture where, you know, depending on who you ask, they didn't have armor until after the Normans arrived. They all fought like in shirts, like just like really long gowns. And it was very much based on heroic combat. So there's a lot of javelins, there's a lot of swords, and it's a lot of sort of champion-based combat. As opposed to these big, you know, ironclad armies. And it's only when the Vikings arrive that that stuff starts to change a little bit. You know, you start getting Galaglass and stuff, which you start to see in this game. But, you know, the Picts, or the Scots, you know, whichever one you want to call it here, they're becoming the Scots in this period. And, you know, it's the same sort of thing. It's like there's a couple really heavily armored generals, but most of your troops are going to be just light skirmisher guys. And that's actually something the Shield Wall mod really tried to emulate. Is when you play Shield Wall. Have you ever played Shield Wall?
I have, yeah, long time ago.
Yeah.
It's one of the first mods I tried, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a funny one because it changes that combat again, so that the bulk of your forces are just these sort of just random dudes, right? And then like the really heavy ones are going to be less than a quarter of your army. And so, you know, even their unit size is significantly smaller. And so wherever you put them becomes much more impactful in the battle because of how they sort of move and push each other. So I don't know, I just sort of ramble for a little bit right there, not really answering your question, but yeah, those are just like underlying like philosophy decisions about Thrones of Britannia.
No, I totally get it, definitely. I think there's an element of, you know, if you have a smaller scale game, you're generally not going to be interested in finding out what other cultures are like. If you're modding it, you're kind of forced to understand because you okay, right, there's this area, okay, I want to make this a little more historically accurate. What were they all about? And so you get to know their context. That's the thing, like on a smaller scale, I think people are less inclined to understand context versus a larger scale that touches more different kind of cultures and areas, and you want to try a different starting position. You want to learn what they're all about and go about it essentially.
Well, and you know, the counterpoint to all of this is Shogun 2. You know, Shogun 2 is just the island of Japan. And really, the only difference between a lot of the different factions was a color of the faction. And yet it sold extremely well and people enjoyed playing it. And yet by the time we get to Thrones of Britannia, something has changed and people aren't okay with it, even though there's distinct cultures here. And so I think that the argument that it's the small scale and the lack of distinct cultures hurt the game is not actually what the issue was, right? There's something else going on here because that was perfectly fine 5 years before. So what changed? What's the difference here, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point. Um, yeah, that is a very good point. I mean, I've always kind of looked at Shogun 2 as it's the sequel to Shogun 1. People who really enjoyed the originals, essentially, it's kind of like the argument of why don't we see Medieval 3 today? Because people are really attached to Medieval 2 when it came out, and they'd love to see a
Yeah.
more modern version. So yeah, I see all the arguments. When I made a video about Pharaoh when it first released and I reviewed it, and I specifically called out the fact that, you know, okay, it's great. It's got 3 different cultures. That's fine. But, you know, this has the potential to be a Bronze Age game, and it's weird not to have other cultures or certain very prominent mechanics to bring the Bronze Age a bit more to life. So when it was suddenly expand and the kind of before going to that, the response, most of the response I got was, well, what about Shogun 2? That was small scale as well. You can essentially say, you know, why didn't Shogun 2 have China and Korea on the map as well? And I don't know. I don't know if there's a real answer to that, really.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. So first, I'll talk about Pharaoh for just a moment. And this is a rumor that I've heard over the years, is that was sort of a C-suite decision. That initially there was going to be a Bronze Age game, and then it sort of got split into 3. So it was going to be the Greece, it was going to be Egypt, and it was going to be Babylon after. And then they were going to do like a big combined map, all Immortal Empires, because that was sort of the hotness at the time. You know how well those had sold, and then. Obviously, something didn't work out, right? And they sold the first one to Epic Games. And when you sell something to Epic Games at the time, it definitely felt like everyone was like, yeah, something's not right here. And I definitely think that home run. But, you know, that was a production, that was a top-level decision, not the individual developers. As for why Pharaoh, and even Troy to a certain degree, just didn't scratch the same itch. I mean, there's something about the Sengoku Jidai, you know, in the 1600s. You know, people have been writing about this since it happened. Like, everyone recognizes on a global level that something big happened there. You know, it's part of the popular conscience. You know, I was watching Shogun on FX last night. You know, it's one of those events that everybody looks at. Oh man, you got a good fight right there. Come
Yeah,
on.
I do.
You can do it.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, I don't think Chad has a chance, really.
What's his name? Is that the brother? I think that's the brother.
I think it's the brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So Harold's brothers are the earls of Kent and the earls of Essex as well. So they're real like Leaf, Wine, and Girth. And so I think you're fighting one of them right now. So they're a constant thorn in your side. As playing as William, because you have to take out all the brothers basically. And the thing is, all of this would have been under Wessex at the time. Under England at the time, and so to sort of simulate that, they're vassal states of England. Unfortunately, it's the best way Thrones has to replicate that sort of thing. Like the fealty system doesn't quite work the way you'd expect. Have you played Bannerlord?
Yeah, I have a little bit. Yeah,
I have grown to love the way they do their fealty system. Like it's one of those things. It's imperfect, but it's like, yeah, this feels pretty good. Like everybody sort of holds the castles individually, but they also are served by the larger lord, and there's that sort of drip taxation system all the way up to the top.
Yeah, I agree. I played a lot more, not Bannerlord, but the first one. Oh my god, my memory today is the worst. Warband, thank you. I played a lot more Warband. So when Bannerlord came out, obviously it's a very good game. I've been playing the mods a lot more recently as well. But compared to Warband, again, there's just kind of like this talk we were having about more modern historical games. There's just something missing from it. I can't put my finger on. But I agree. I think the fealty system, the way you move around, you swear allegiance, other lords, and you know their army, their upkeep, the supply food system, and all of that is really well done in these games.
It's cohesion. That's the thing that I think Bannerlord gets right. that something doesn't work well in the Total War is the cohesion system. That when you summon your your host, your big armies to you, it's not like you're recruiting units. It's you have your lord, and they summon these individual lords, and each of them bring their retinues and armies, and you come together, and then they stay together until it falls apart, either through lack of food or what they say, the cohesion system, and then the army sort of disperses and it goes back again. And I feel like in Total War, there's sort of an incentive to always have an army on the field, as opposed to having to disperse it, go do other things, and come back again. Like it's like a never-ending roll and crunch versus this sort of like seasonal give and take that you can see in other locations. And it's just, I think that would help if they had something like that instead of being the relentless march that is Total War.
Yeah, 100%. It's something that like the Paradox games do really well. This idea of, okay, you're building an empire, you're creating relations and creating a legacy through your family. War isn't exactly the only tool in your toolbox. So you can do that, but it's not really as much about war as it is creating a kingdom, a piece of the map that is your own, and you've shaped it in your own way.
I personally feel Paradox games war is an afterthought. Like just like in Total War, the focus is the battles. Realistically, they want to get you into the battles. Paradox, it's on the campaign, on the dynasty building. Wars happen, but there's so many other ways of making it happen that's not necessarily the main drive behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I was talking with somebody yesterday about that, about like, oh man, I wish Total War was more like a Paradox game. I'm like, they have been. That's why in Pharaoh you have 14 different mechanics all top of each other. Like they're trying to be more like a Paradox game, because everyone keeps saying be more like a Paradox game.
That's interesting, actually. I mean, I don't know. I find that CA, like the way Total War has been recently, with Pharaoh, to a certain degree with Troy and Three Kingdoms, it's not so much. It's like Paradox level, but very surface. Do you know what I mean? I always come back to this idea of, you're playing a campaign. It's all about the battles, but you want to make difficult decisions on the campaign that lead you there. You don't want to be force-fed a battle just for the sake of this being a Total War game. And for me, anyway, that's why Pharaoh doesn't quite have it. It doesn't give you that I have to make this difficult decision and then a few turns later fight this battle. That's the consequence of it. Do you know what I mean?
I think Thrones actually does that surprisingly well. I've lost more Thrones campaigns than I've won, because the public order system is so brutal. Like the number of times that I'll fight a battle, my leader will die, and then my entire kingdom devolves into anarchy with like splinter factions. Secession crises are no joke in this game, and it definitely makes you like be a little more careful with what and when you're going to fight. I think that's something this game does particularly well, and I've always really enjoyed that, this sort of emergent storytelling that comes from these sorts of things.
Yeah, definitely. With Thrones specifically, I think it definitely comes back to this idea of you can't have these cities that you can just defend anymore either. You don't have the luxury of just spreading armies out and conquering cities and towns. So you have to have a presence to defend your territory. Yeah.
Yeah, it's as you said, like the not being able. It's something else to do with your armies, right? Besides fight these big battles. Hopefully you're going out, you're raiding a small settlement. There's definitely an advantage to just creating an all cavalry force of 3 guys, and all they do is go in, raid your enemy's backfields while you're getting an invasion going. There's something quite fun that comes with that, and this is something that Monsters Abound, your scenes channel.
Yeah.
Based out of Cornwall, the Jolly Green Giant. I love that guy. Anywho, we chat about this stuff occasionally on the side, and something we both kind of come down on is like, even though it's a game based on wars, I find myself auto-resolving more than I should. Like it feels like if it's a clear, obvious battle, auto-resolve, move on. Well, then why was that battle there, right? If it's not fun for me to play, I'm not going to play it. So why is it present? You know, I think in a lot of these sort of like army pushes and things like that, you know, you invade the territory of England here. You know, you beat Harold pretty much quickly. Okay, that's fine. Another person should pop up, build an army, and come at you with another concentrated army. And if you beat that person, there should be a suing for peace. Like, there should be a definite, like, okay, you know what? It's cool. We back down. Here, have some territory. And it feels like the AI never quite... You don't get the idea that the war ever ends, right? Like, you invaded a territory, you take the territory, or you take the country. That was the end of it, right? You don't feel the peace process is never quite as involved as you would want it to be. It feels like peace is always like, you know, they have one settlement left. We offer you peace. No, I'm not going to take that deal. I'm just going to take your settlement.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely an element of and I feel that it was much more prominent in the original games where you had, like, you know, features that leaned a lot more towards having a stable kingdom and an army that could kind of split off, and captains that could be promoted. There was a much more kind of a dynamic system of, right, I need to have an alliance with the Holy Roman Empire if I'm going to go to war with Spain as France and not have a two-front war. Like, there were... Whereas in modern games, it's a lot more. I can just expand and conquest, take the stat buffing, really hardcore, you know, massive units and this and the tech tree, etc., to just keep that going essentially and steamroll the map.
It's that core gameplay loop. You know, the argument of what the loop of Total War is, which is, you know, build a building, build your army, expand your army, fight a battle, build a building. You know, that's the loop. And they're definitely focusing more on the constant battle aspect of it. You know, they want to throw more battles at you, not necessarily good battles. Like, everybody wants the big battle, right? And you want that big battle to mean something. I actually run into this problem with Bannerlord. It's not just Total War, just for anyone listening. You know, it's, you know, in Bannerlord, you'll have this big army, you'll come together, you'll have this big fight, and then 30 seconds later, another army appears on the horizon. And it's not like it's an endless horde either. It's just like they're being recruited. There's like, it doesn't feel like it has the impact. Like, the number of times in that game that I've sued for peace, or had someone sue me for peace after getting the break speed off of them, and then we have to pay them money because they are the stronger empire. It's like, yeah. Same kind of thing here. It's like, you know, this is a good fight. I can tell it's a good fight. You know, there's a lot going on. Good night. You know, I mean, you're having to flank and move, and it's still going, right? I mean, these are the kind of fights you want to see in this game, right? But it's been, gosh, we've been talking for, you know, an hour now, and this is the first really good one you've had.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite even. I have to defeat this this army because they're just out of the city and they're sitting there.
Put them in the back.
I need to cycle charge. Cav is getting caught. Oh, I think that might be it.
Yeah, I think they're starting to do that chain route on you. I mean, that's what you want to see, is when it's all been starting to run down the line like that. I love the strong battle lines in this game. This is one that, you know, you feel that shield wall line, and you feel the need to break it, you know, either through javelins or cavalry, or it's like, here's the nut, how do you crack it? You know, I love that, that simplicity and the straightforwardness of how the design works for Thrones. And I think that's one reason the battles work so well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's also a really good reason for why people aren't enjoying kind of modern historical battles as much anymore, because you do have a lot more blobbing, you know, versus TOB, Attila, Rome 2, where legions hold their lines. There's a set formation. Units don't just push through as easily. And you can really see the battle kind of structurally feel a lot more authentic because of that.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I hope they make some more stuff. I'm not holding my breath one way or the other at this point. It's hard to say what the company's going to do. I'm honestly surprised that it survived in the last year. You know, all the layoffs and cuts through Sega.
Yeah.
Obviously, all their back catalog is still great. People still play it. Clearly, you're playing a game from 2018, so you know, there must be something they did right. And I think it's aged wonderfully.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's some really great stuff for all that really encourages play and keeping interacting with it. And I hope to see more Total War like games in the future. You know, I think that as these people obviously left the company and went to do other things, they have those skills. And I think there's definitely room for competitors, you know, that do something else that's interesting and in the same vein. You know, clearly this is a desire people are having that's not being met at the moment. So it does feel like there's a market for it. So hopefully we see more out of it there.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully. Do you have any?
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Final question. Sorry, I don't know if you need to go. Do you have any other kind of competitor style games that?
Boys room. That's unrelated,
no
and it sounds so lame to say that, but it's
No
just like, I
worries.
had a cup of coffee before I started because it was like 7 a.m. here, and so I'm like, I gotta do this.
Okay,
Right,
no worries,
sorry,
no
go
worries.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, are there any competitors you are playing? Any of those competitor kind of games? I don't know.
I personally put
difficult to-
Bannerlord in the same category. I do think it is similar enough that, you know, it definitely scratches the same itch. I think people wanted Manor Lords to be that game, and it wasn't. You know, it was very obvious from the get-go this is a city building game, and it had battles tacked on, and it still feels that way. You know, because I think people kept asking for the battles, so it kept kind of forcing them into that. As opposed to what it naturally wanted to be. Age of Empires 4 is still fantastic fun. You know, it's the RTS genre. It's just it has not. It's doing well, but obviously fantasy and sci-fi and things like that I think do better. I was talking with actually a dev at Hooded Horse, one of the producers at Hooded Horse. I know those guys. They're super nice. It's funny. I just have chatted with them for various things through the years.
Okay, nice.
And you know. Actually, did you know that? Have you ever played the Viking Conquest mod for Warband?
For Warband, no, actually I haven't.
Right. Well, first off, Viking Conquest mod for Warband. I bet you'd like that for Mount & Blade Warband. It's
Definitely.
the same time period of 878 AD. Actually, yeah. Speaking of which, that's one of the weirder decisions about Thrones of Britannia to me. That it's set after the initial Great Viking Army invasion. Because like that's the thing that everybody wanted to play was to play as Alfred getting invaded by the Great Viking Army, and they decided to skip that part. And I was never really quite convinced about their argument on that one. Like, oh, we just did a survival game with Attila. Yeah, but that's the story here, right? That's the punch. You know, that's why I did the Norman Conquest. It's the same kind of thing. It's an invasion game. You know, that's how it works. Anywho.
Yeah, definitely. All right, you scoot off.
What was that?
You scoot off if you need to. Obviously, you know.
No, I mean I'm good. Self-control, teacher discipline here. As far as like other games in the genre though, yeah, I was speaking to him and he said the thing is that European history is so specific, right? Especially even British history is a subdivision of European history, and while a lot of America appreciates it and parts of England, like there's also a very strong pushback against that from other cultures and other areas of the world. And so there's always going to be a more universal appeal to fantasy and to sci-fi. And because of that, a lot of companies pursue that, especially, larger companies. You want to create something that the most people will get an enjoyment out of. And I totally get that. Yeah. It makes sense, especially if you're trying to support yourself and other people monetarily. And so sometimes it's a tough sell for games like this. I've seen several, I've seen 2 1066 games up on Steam, and they're both board games. They're not trying to do these big scale battles. And I think that's Total War's done sort of had their market cornered for 20 years now, where they're the only ones really doing the campaign map and the battle, because it's hard. As someone who has been figuring out how to do that for 2 years now, it's tough to build that because you're basically making 2 different games, a campaign map game and a battle game, and you have to find a way to marry them together where both are interesting and fun to play. I have a huge amount of respect for the developers on this game now, like having gone through the files and seeing how they're having to rearrange the pieces to make it work, but also the decisions that have to go into even minute things like what, do you have a food system? How does your food system work? These have huge implications that can take months to actually put together. There's one coming out that's been the Renaissance Wars game. Have you seen that one? I think you covered it on your channel, actually.
I haven't covered it, but I saw it. I think who covered it recently? I saw somebody cover it. Oh my god, I'm so bad with names today. Oh, what's his name?
Fine.
Great Book of
2
Grudges covered it like 2 days ago, I think, didn't he?
Great
2 or
book,
3 days ago.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense. Great book covers everything.
True.
So that's definitely one where it's a series that's been, I think it's like their 3rd or 4th game, and so it's definitely getting pretty far in, and so they're starting to be more mature, and it looks pretty good. I think that the Total War style interface of wanting to be able to click on a unit and move the unit and having this micro control does sort of hold the genre back a little bit, and it can lead to some really cheesy tactics if it doesn't work out well. Like in the last 2 years, I've got kids that are getting older now and they're wanting to play more games like I do, and so they're the one they really enjoy is Totally Accurate Battle Simulator. You ever played that one?
Oh yeah, I haven't played it, but I've seen a lot of videos about it.
It's
Crazy
goofy,
videos.
but it's also sort of interesting, right? It's like you put people in a line, they fight, and then they behave. And it's interesting that when you read a lot about these medieval battles, like there's a lack of control. Like, you just sort of press play and let it happen. You can affect it individually in a small scale, but the chaos is part of the fun, the lack of predictability. And I've actually found that, Thrones of Britannia, when initially released, had the critical hit system. The old arrow in the eye mechanic is how it was advertised. The idea is that if you're just walking your general across the field and they get hit with a bunch of arrows, there's a 1% chance the general will just die.
Yeah.
People hated that. They hated it and made them tone it down because their general would randomly die because they played like a traditional Total War game. Right. And I think that just sort of that desire to control things also has to be balanced with like fair chaos, because the chaos creates randomization and the randomization then creates replayability. But that's a core concept. But it's funny, to answer your question, no, not a whole lot coming down the pipe that's in a similar vein. I know there's a YouTube channel that started up like 6 months ago saying he's going to remake, make Medieval 3 himself. And then like I looked at like 3 of his videos and I was like, no, okay, good luck to you.
Yeah.
I look, it's sort of like modding on steroids is the best way to describe it. I told people, if I get a team of 10 really good people, like back when Shield Wall was being worked on, I approached the rep at CA. I was like, hey, I've got this idea for a Norman Conquest game. I got a team of 10 people. We can totally make this. And then, release it as an official DLC like they did for Viking Conquest. And I got a, no, thanks. Appreciate it though. All right, cool. Well, then I'll just make it myself and move on. It's just, getting the amount of people required to make something like Total War is huge. Like, especially when you're pursuing the artistic stuff to this degree. I always say that in video games, anything time you're pursuing realism is a fool's errand, because you can never perfectly recreate reality. Like, there's always going to be a problem that comes from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I don't know. I definitely could see more stylized games coming out in the future, something similar to things like Thronefall, things like that, but I don't see like this level of detail that we see coming into these games, because even down to the individual helmets and the rivets, I mean, they are pulling from 3D scans of things from the British Museum, as only an established company can with that level of access.
Wow, that's actually interesting. Yeah, I mean, when you have the resource, you can make it. You can make an effort to make it more historically authentic, but obviously you got to balance that out with fun gameplay as well. So, yeah, interesting. And I think you're totally right. There have never been competitors that have come close, close enough at least to make a dent to the community. Of not the community to make a dent on the monopolization of Total War, and I don't think there ever will be. I mean, there are a couple that I can think of that are the closest I've ever thought of. They could be one of them's Knights of Honor 2. I think got quite close. I think Manor Lords has the potential, but it's just not the same kind of game. It's a completely different way of playing. You've got that kind of battle aspect to it, but it's as you said, it was attached on. It was never going to be the primary selling point, a primary feature. I can't really think of anything else, really. I mean, I haven't actually personally played Age of Empires 4.
It's good. It's very good. Like it definitely is an evolution of 2, with 3D graphics. Like, it wants to keep into that basic RTS style. It's not reinventing the wheel. Did you play Rise of Nations back in the day?
I did, yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Same kind of thing. It's like, how do you, it's that balancing act of, do you want to go to separate battles, or do you want to keep it onto the main campaign map? And the problem that comes with this, separating the battles out causes a lot of problems. Like, as far as keeping it in one place. It sounds dumb to say that, but it's also issues of scale. How big? It may be England, but is it England with a city every 5 feet, or is it England with a city every 20 feet? These are all questions that start to really bog people down. And as dumb as it sounds, like, if you want to make a historical game, you gotta do the research. And like, you can always make a crappy one with bad research, where it's just like, I'm fighting Vikings. It's like a broad concept. Bad North, really good example of a broad concept of Viking invasions. It's fun, it's interesting, it's not Total War. And so, trying to get that team together to do that level of stuff is quite hard. But what I was saying about Hooded Horse earlier is the Hooded Horse was started by the people who made the Viking Conquest DLC for Mountain Blade. Like, they put a team together and then sort of spinned it off, and then kept making their own production stuff after that. So that's those same people. That's why they have that focus even today.
Right. Interesting. I love how you always have these kinds of, ex-modders who decided, you know what, I can actually, we have a decent enough team, or I know these people that can come together to do something a bit more independently made and interesting. Oh, I've lost you.
Sorry,
Hello?
my finger slipped.
Oh, no worries.
My finger slipped.
Yeah.
The people who start making mods are extremely talented individuals. In fact, I believe that several of the people in the current Warhammer DLC team for Warhammer 3 started off as modders. And Jack Lusted, the guy who made Thrones of Britannia, started off as a modder for, I think it was Medieval 2 and Empire. I mean, you can see him back in the forums back in the day chatting with people. And it's the same skill set, at the end of the day. It's like, this is definitely transferable. People always say, it's just a mod. No, I mean, we're using the same tools. It's the same database files. There's really not a lot different there. It's just like scope and scale of what you're trying to do. As we've seen from a lot of mods that have started coming out now, there's literally nothing, almost nothing that can't be accomplished, with a good enough mod team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy, honestly, when I think about it, how much of a stigma there is around mods. I did a poll, I think it was like 2 years ago. So things may have changed, obviously, since then. But it was something like, right, how many of you play vanilla? How many of you play with mods? How many of you do both? And there was a large number of people who just play vanilla, and they've never touched mods before. Even for a channel like mine that's dedicated to kind of showcasing mods and talking about them and everything. Back then, at least, I think it was close to 35% of people just, that they're here for the Total War. They play vanilla themselves. They have no idea how to get into installing, doing that, and they're afraid to. Yeah.
And afraid is the right word there. I mean, there's a big stigma attached to modding, because it's like, oh, I click the button and now my game won't launch. Maybe the mod was out of date, but you have to learn to troubleshoot that. It requires a certain level of tech awareness that people may not necessarily feel comfortable with. The more plug and play you can make your mod, the better it is. Like, if people have to adjust any settings, they won't touch it.
Yeah.
Right? Like this one, you click install, you launch the campaign, and it's good to go. But I still get regular comments from people where it won't launch because they have another mod installed, and it's like, oh, well, it wasn't compatible. There's no way for them to know that.
True power.
True.
Comes at the point of a sword.
But all right, I'm gonna let you go, sir. Thank you so much for letting me pop in. It looks like you're well on your way to conquering Wessex. I do not suspect any of England is going to give you much problems anymore. Although
it doesn't seem like it.
The Mercian hegemony is. Oh, you just got a short victory right there.
I did. Yeah.
So that's one thing I actually tweaked on this, is I like the shorter victories, so I try and make it closer to what their historical objectives were for each person. So this is definitely one where you got the short victory, and yeah, I mean, this is much as the Normans managed by the end of 1066, 1067, the entirety of the north and pretty much everything west of about, west of the Midlands, in Stonehenge and all that, hadn't been conquered yet. So you've successfully managed to do about what they had in the first year there, all the way up to the Thames and London.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but I hear you out. Thank you so much for joining. Honestly, it's a pleasure to have a developer. I don't do it very often to come on, talk about their
Oh, no.
their mod, talk about, especially with you, because you create content. You know Total War through and through. It's nice to just talk about it generally as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for
I
thank
love
you for
talking
coming
about
on.
Thrones. I'd love to make another mod for it, especially as if there's interest grows back. So if you guys come up with any things you want to see added to the mod or things you'd like to see different, as you said, there's a lot of exciting things happening again with the creation of the ability to edit campaign maps. I think there could be some really cool stuff coming down the pipe in the near future. But yeah, thanks for having me on, and I'll let you keep on streaming, and
Yeah,
have
definitely.
a great day out there, man.
All right, same to you. Thank you for coming, man. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
All right. So yeah, guys, that was Cody Bonds just coming on to talk about the mod that we've been playing this week. 1066. If you don't know it, it is it's essentially a Norman Invasion mod for Thrones of Britannia. It does a lot more than just add the kind of a better, more authentic Normans, but it does a lot of kind of unit additions for the other factions, some mechanical rebalancing on the campaign and the battles, new buildings, things like that as well. So if you haven't played it, definitely check it out. But yes, so we're going to continue the stream here. Just saying hello to everyone in the chat if I haven't said hello to you just yet. And yeah, as Cody said, we've essentially managed to recreate what William did. William the Conqueror did when he invaded Britain. From here on out, essentially, the Kingdom of England is formed. Well, here at least, England is kind of already a power, with England being the faction around Wessex, and other factions here, Essex, Kent, being their vassals. But I think we've done a pretty good job of beating them back, and let's continue on here. So Fitz Osborne has a skill we're just gonna spend. Just like a blanket hello to everyone in the chat. Give a little shout out to Cody. He's an awesome, great guy. Fantastic mod that he's developed here. And he has a great channel. Definitely go check it out as well if you're especially interested in Warhammer 3 and Warhammer content in general. But yeah, let me know how you're enjoying the campaign so far, how you enjoyed the kind of developer, bit of a, not an interview, but kind of, an open conversation about 1066, historical Total War, generally, Warhammer, competitors. Let me know in the chat. So we've got lots of money, and I'm not going to really recruit into this army. I'm going to recruit a couple into this. Actually, no, I can't. I'm running out of supplies. All right, I'm not going to repair these buildings. I'm going to convert this one to some priory stores. And what else have we got going here? I need a couple more buildings that produce food, essentially. So Gloucester has 10 units defending. We could probably take it with this army, and then what I'm thinking is swing towards Dorchester on the east side here. So that's what we'll do. We'll go and besiege Gloucester. I don't need too many towers, really. Go for 4. I'll ignore the ram. And then... so we've got Tillburg here, east of London. Got a couple of armies just north of London hovering about. I'm gonna go for Chelmsford, potentially. Or no, let's just go back to London and do a bit of recruitment with this army. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with food. That's the only problem at the moment. Food production from port chains. This could be nice to have. We can go with some more food production here. What else? Pevensey, no. Basingstoke, which is Basingstoke, Southampton. None of these really produce food. This is a little bit... I think we're just going to have to get rid of a unit to make sure we're in the positive. Governance available in Somerset. So we'll go with this one here. And I'm just going to... I'm going to sit, because I've been standing this whole time. And standing is good for you, but... Oh, man. It's good to... Oh, my God, it's good to sit. Also going to open a window, because it's hot. Anyone play this mod? Was it worth to buy TOB only for the mod? Etienne. Is it worth buying just for the mod? I don't know. That's a good question. I would say if the setting interests you, then buy the game. And you can buy it for cheap. But if you're not interested in just British conflict, British history generally, I would probably miss it. That's the biggest consideration, I think, anyway. Let's ignore the rumors there. And I'm just going to increase the sound now as well, because I couldn't really hear Cody very well when he was on. All right, so we've got the last couple of cities here in the southwest that we're going to go for. And what we'll do is we'll get this army over here. Let's do a bit of replenishment. We'll retrain these units. And then do we have a little more to do? Yes, we do. We have one more turn to do here in Gloucester before we turn towards Dorchester. Kent has a full stack army now again in Chelmsford, which is fine. I think we'll retrain and we'll recruit a little bit more in this army after we have our supply situation under control a bit more. Do I have any other? Yeah, I can increase this one. 15. Not bad. All right. And then yeah. I'll just wait for the main army to catch up. Kent going for Tillberg there, which is totally fine. And just corner them with our main army in London. And I'm at minus 66 now, so I've just... Oh, this will be Tillberg being lost, probably. Right, but we're gonna fight this battle, I think. Yeah, let's see if we can fight this battle. I think the force is fairly even. It's just a matter of how we're going to get our cavalry into the town. You hear Dauntless Days may be getting ported to Thrones after 1.0. No, I didn't know that. I know that the modders would prefer doing it on Thrones, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the plan. Huh. This is an interesting... It's almost like an old Roman settlement, isn't it? With the walls. Kind of reminds me of Attila in Rome, too. Right, so... What are we gonna go for? I really like the idea of coming through here, but it's just... Because it's so close to the victory point. I really just... It could be quite fun to do that, actually. It'd be bad for me, but... just like the idea of 4 towers going through this bridge. Let's do it. Why not? We've got 4 units here ready to go behind them. And then the cav, which I need to figure out, really. I don't know what I'm going to do with the cav. Probably just send them onto the walls as well.
Axemen! Crush them! Axemen! Axemen! Swordsmen!
All right, there they go.
My sword, your guts!
They're fighting over the proper pronunciation of Gloucester. Fair enough. I mean, in modern day, I'm just kind of... A lot of these settlement names, I'm just calling their modern day equivalents, essentially. So, Gloucester. Today, you would call it Gloucester, essentially. I love the settlement designs in this game. I'm the same. I really like the settlement. I think it's kind of established as TOB has some of the best settlement designs in Total War, just generally. I do really like Shogun 2, though, as well. Oh, boy. Having some traffic over here. Right, so these guys can push onto the bridge. Big Mountain Blade siege energy. I know, right? Yeah, this was a bit of a... That's fine. They're getting into position. They must be behind the walls, hence why I can't see them. Just a bit weird that they wouldn't be on the walls. Oh man, that is a lot of damage for a tower that isn't at the wall yet. %, 60%. Oh my god, it's increasing so quickly. 72, 75. I think they're just about gonna make it. With oil, yeah. So the gate has oil as well, so we don't want to push through the gate. Let's get these guys over here. What is this unit doing? Levy skirmisher, just kind of hanging outside. And these guys are fighting on this side, the retinue swordsmen. And let's get these guys up on the tower through this one. Go on, lads, go on. Doing good, doing good. I think what we'll do is... well... Oh, these guys decided to go on that tower. That's fair enough. How are we doing here? Oof. It's really not going that well, actually. But this side should be better. We've got this unit cornered on both ends. Let's run these guys down with the cavalry. Yeah, this side is going to be quite tough, I think. What can we do with these guys? I think let's get them over here and then down to the ground. That's what I'd like to do with them. Let's get you guys up here as well, actually.
The battle is turning in our favor.
Okay, so we kind of caught that unit off guard a little bit. You guys need to keep fighting them. We need to get these guys up top. How are we doing on this side? Let's get the bowmen up as well, actually. Are we beating one unit? Which is good. Let's get you guys. No, no, on the towers, on the towers. Come on. Ah. Use the tower. There you go. All right, got those kind of on the retreat. These guys are retreating. Let's get you off the wall. Nice. These guys are doing great. Norman swordsman. Breaking a couple of units here. These guys have broken as well. Let's get you off the walls. In fact, let's get one of these units over here. Just to capture the gate. And then we'll have the cavalry ready to go into the town, basically. Hey, Eduardo, what's up, man? General is holding steady, but not for long.
The enemy have rallied their units.
Up the pace, man! Commanders! Chosen by us! Full gallop!
Don't need them that far forward. like the general's retreating now as well.
We've
They only have
captured
6
the
men
gates.
left. So there must be a unit somewhere. Okay, right. There you go. Nice. That was a cool little battle. I enjoyed that one. Hold on, guys. 2 seconds. I need to figure out this streaming issue. That's the only thing I need to figure out for next time, Saturday. Yeah, I need to just decide how I'm going to stream both on Twitch and YouTube. All right, so Gloucester is ours. Or Gloucester, as Azaris pointed out. So let's just repair some of these buildings. I'm gonna go for a granary here because we're running out of food like crazy. And then, yeah, I need to figure out what I'm gonna do food-wise. Bills available. We've got... Hilleberg is a farm, isn't it? Something to that effect. A port. Fishery or... Oh, it's the enemy king. Wigston, the other brother. Yeah, let's kill Wigston. Go for it. But yeah, the restream dropped off again, and that's not good. I don't understand why my bandwidth is decent enough, so it should work. I'm struggling to figure out why it keeps dropping off on the restream's end. I mean, if it continues, I might just stop streaming on Twitch. I don't think it's worth it, really. If I keep losing stream quality, because I'm trying to do both. Last week it worked okay, but this week for some reason it just hasn't been doing very good. Well, let's get the general back here. We don't need to commit him into anything early on. And they're just gonna retreat back a little bit.
The enemy approaches.
Where are you going, Wigston? You a little scared? Got a melee cav unit there. That's totally fine. And another levy there as well. So what we'll do is start pushing up the main infantry force here. Stretch them out a little bit. We'll have a backup. And we'll start pushing the cav up to try and corner these units on the flanks. The general, I don't really need to commit. I'm not planning on committing them. Let's start trying to harass this unit.
Cavalry! We're taking missile fire! Cavalry! Ready! Hasten yourselves!
Nice. I'm boxing them in here a little bit.
With speed, warriors! Cavalry!
Their cav is kind of switching things around a little bit as well.
We have discovered the enemy's hidden.
Right. They're starting to charge in, so we are as well.
Units.
Massive clashes on the battlefield.
Quicken the pace! Quicken the pace! The enemy and
See, they flee before our might.
Alright, their cav units are retreating. Sure, the other one will be retreating as well. Yeah, they're not doing too hot.
The battle is turning in our favor.
Where's Wigston?
with speed, warriors! Attack! We agree! Run them down!
Yeah, they're not gonna last. Let's get the cav grouped up. These guys are done as well. Pretty much.
Move it, Captain! Axemen! Bring them! Smash them! Cavalry! Acknowledge! Bring them! To victory! End them! Axemen! Levy men! Axemen!
Nice. That unit's gone as well.
Cavalry! Attack! Cavalry! Spearmen! Cavalry! Cavalry! Faster! And wipe them out! Cavalry! Show them my order! Got them! State your order!
Get this unit out of there.
Ready for war!
Let's get the general a little bit closer for that morale bonus.
Our foes will fall! Spearmen! Spearmen! Superiority in numbers! Crush them! Full gallop! Attack! We've damaged the enemy! Cavalry! Charge them!
Does this mod let you play as Hadrada? It does. Yes.
Cavalry! Spearmen! Cavalry!
All right, let's get them out.
See, they flee before our might.
Living men! And them! Swordsmen! Spearmen! Attack!
I know where the king is. I want to find him. I always enjoy doing that. Where are you? Oh, they are retreating now. I have one, but I want to find the king. He will die very soon. 50. 43. Yeah, they are very quickly whittling him down. Oh my god. That's just a swarm of men.
Ready for war. Hasten yourself.
I want to get out of the way and try and drive him down.
The troops are
What's my difficulty setting? Currently set at hard. Hard campaign, hard on the battles as well. I don't see him. I wonder if he's already dead. Did we get a general killed message? We must have. Yeah, we must have. All right. All right, Wigston is no more, but we still have food shortage issues, which isn't great. So, God, if I increase the tax rate, I'm definitely bound to get a rebellion. I don't think that is the answer here. I need to get rid of 8 units, which is a lot. It's not ideal. Let's try and go for Exencester, which must be Exeter.
Plunder and glory.
What can I do here? Maybe what I can do is just get rid of some of these main buildings that are taking a lot of food production. See, minus 30 food production here is pretty big. Oh, I can't dismantle them either. Right. Yeah, food shortage really is not good. I'm just gonna have to risk it and see what happens. The battle looks more like Glastonbury Festival. Yeah, with that one especially, I think there was a lot of mosh pitting, people just kind of standing around, lots of blobbing. The formations didn't really hold as much as we wanted to. Oh man, we are losing even more supplies now, which is not good. This raiding party must have an impact on this. Gloucester has a garrison that's kind of being replenished. Let's see if we can just take Exeter. Which of course makes our food situation worse. Governor, we can probably do some food production with him. Henry, the same, I think. He's a governor, food production. We'll just keep that like that. Research. Getting some Norman spearmen would probably be good. And then, yeah, guys, what am I going to do about food? This is really not good. -7 food production. Let's get rid of the craftsmen. governance available up. Oh, in 2 regions, actually. So we're going to have to hire a couple more governors. Maybe a minor here in Devon. And yeah, what am I going to do about food? See, if I could just take the rest of this area, I'm not going to actually need these armies. But at the moment, at least, I need them.
We'll see them through.
Yeah.
Odin's name.
Let's see if we can get over there and take that guy out.
We'll see this through.
And then I really need to fight this battle and defeat this army, because these guys are just sitting here, basically. William has done nothing for ages.
Ready for combat.
Let's go for Chelmsford, maybe up here.
We will.
That helps somewhat.
Led your service.
Meldoon will help as well, so we'll go for that next.
You can rely on us. Enemy
How much of a garrison does... Oh my god, that is quite the garrison. Yeah, I don't... It is William, though. I mean, he's got 10 rank and command, which is quite cool.
our foes shall fall. We pledge your service.
Let's see if I can raid here.
Let's go.
Fortify. Raids wealth and supplies.
Prepare to plunder them.
Well, let's do that there. Going on here. Yep. Looked at that. Henry still has low loyalty. We can keep getting some of these smaller settlements. So I will... Or maybe even I'll push this way with this army and start... Can I? I don't have enough action. Right. I don't have enough action to do that.
Hurry along.
Let's move this way then. I don't have enough replenishment for this army, so...
Our foes shall fall.
Robert of Mortain.
We pledge your service.
Okay. I mean, I don't really have a choice. I need to make sure my armies have replenishment. So we're just gonna have to get rid of some of these units. What are we gonna get rid of? Let's get rid of a couple of these axemen. And the crossbow unit here as well. Or let's keep the crossbow and get rid of a unit or 2 here. These 2, and maybe the bowmen. There you go. Because now at least we've got some replenishment going in the next turn. And we can use these armies to take out the rebels and the rest of these cities here. And we've got a couple other buildings being built, so... just need those agricultural buildings to finish off as well. Hey, Robert Taylor. What's up, man? I seem to recognize your name from somewhere. +6 in all regions. +3 in all regions. That's quite good. William has become insane. Gained by randomly going mad. That's not good. Wow. All right. What we'll do is we'll start sending this army east then. Try and link them up with William. And then we'll just take Meldoon really quickly as well for the supplies. Huge supply increase, actually. That's really nice. Very nice. All right. And then down here, what are we doing here? 16 units, no replenishment. Because we're out of supply. Or let's get in here and see if we can forage and gain some supplies. And then with this one, we're just gonna scoot straight past Lewtoun here and try and get to these other settlements, Sancta Germain, Sancta Yi, and then maybe we'll challenge Bodmin as well. I don't think I'm going to do anything else this turn, so let's just move on. East Anglian ports will be good, but the marshland is a pain. I'm not even sure if the game has it as marsh, but the fear it could make it difficult. Yeah. I think I'm going to have to go for East Anglia anyway. That's where we're aiming towards against Kent and Essex. Plotting rumors against William. Again, not really ideal. Got this little Kentish army pushing towards London, which I'm not enjoying the look of either. Kind of a garrison do we have here? Not much. Chelmsford also has this one, Wigan Mare. Let's try and take Holmcaster. And then over here, we're going to send this army. We're going to continue sending this army towards Dorchester. And William is going to go on the offensive very soon. Over here, we finally got a little bit of supply, but we need more, really. Action food characters. You know what? Let's just go back and replenish now that we have the supplies. -10 stance. We're gonna lose the supplies, but at least we've got a little bit of replenishment going. Yeah, hopefully can keep up the supply there. And then let's go down here. Got a nice little church. What else have we got here? We can repair that. Bridgeports. Do I have anything that has a building slot? What about not bad, not bad. There we go. London has a slot that we can use. -10 food production. This is mainly a kind of commercial province, really. 5% income and all commercial income as well there, so that's nice. 70 income. Norman forts. This could be quite nice. We've also got the unit replenishment modifier. Let's do that one. And do we have any others? Let's have a look. Yeah, we've got Chippenham, which I think again will do the grain pits or craftsman. Yeah, we'll do the grain pits, I think, here. A little food building we can do there. Let's not do that. Let's focus on building up Gloucester then. Maybe a garrison here could be nice for a few more units. Or Norman camp. Public order, food, -10 food production. Each holdout time, -10% upkeep for all units. I think this one is better, actually. The Norman camp. We'll go for that one there. And then doing okay for repairs in this province, and we have a slot, so Athongeg. We got here some food production, some a couple of churches. Income. Yeah, I'll think about this one. I don't think this one's ready really to build on. Got a governor here, which we'll do a forager with.
Friendship will benefit both our houses.
Declaration of friendship with Mercia? I don't think so. They're a vassal kingdom of England.
There will be
Not yet. Essex, though, on the other hand, I need to do something about because,
I have achieved.
yeah,
greater
it's
rank.
just not. It's not easy to be expanding with a giant faction at your doorstep. Let's get over here. Do a bit of raiding.
Take everything you can.
Then we'll go for this little town there.
Enemy blood.
Then over here, I really just want to scoop past and get to Sanctia, because that's the furthest kind of town there that I haven't taken. Also got this one here that we haven't had a look at.
Our foes shall fall.
All right, over here though. Oh, I'm so close. I just want to take this. I'm so close there. Let's okay, let's move this army there. Let's take you off
Rest and regroup.
and move closer. And then what we'll do is we'll have one besiege the city and the other one attack the main army here, led by Ufa.
Open.
Then over on this side, we're gonna take this city. Just dropping in. Whoa, looks like the Conqueror reincarnated. Thank you, yeah. We've done a pretty good job, I think, so far, conquering England. England. Fucking field. Weapons and armor. Nice. Sure, okay, why not? We'll repair that. Kind of the easternmost city of Kent. Taken over. They only have a few settlements left here. Wigan, Mare, their capital. Hartford, St. Albans, Buckingham. That's the last of it for Kent, and then we can focus on Essex.
In Odin's name.
Skills available for Rolf. Just do that. And then,
We pledge your service. Wait for new orders, men.
yeah, this one we've already done as well.
Can rely on us.
All right. Will you kiss me, Termy? Robert Taylor. I think you know how I feel about you. If you're ever in London, you can just shoot me a message. I'm around for a little kiss. Sure. Why not? As long as you don't burn any menus. Yeah. All right, so that's
Blood will flow.
a little progress here.
To glory.
We've got
Rest and regroup.
just not there yet. Yeah, let's go down and take this little settlement here, and then we'll move north towards these guys, these rebels. And then, right, so we're going to besiege the city. Start building some towers, and we're going to do a bit of a battle here, I think.
For the
Gonna attack this army,
moving out. Massacre them.
and it looks like they've come across the river and retreated, which is fair enough. Retrain all these people, so that's what we're gonna do, or upgrade them rather, with the better armor better weapons. So we've got that done. We're going to go to Chelmsford and take back the town from this rebel army. And then we've got that. Got that. Maybe a little more kind of melee troops would be nice here. Do a bit of recruitment, and then we'll go for Wigan Mare, and then kind of hang west a little bit with this army. But I need to just keep an eye on Essex. What they're going to do. Governor here. So we're going to go for income all in Gloucester. We'll upgrade this building. And that's it, I think. Chelmsford, we'll just repair. We've got a couple buildings we can build here as well. Patrols, Lawfield, Norman Camp, Commerce, Port building chains, cloth, pottery, salt. This could be nice. Craft merchant. So we'll go for that one. I love to burn stuff. I know you do, Robert. I know you do. I know you do. All right, so Essex, they've been they've been distracted now, and they've decided, no, we're not going to defend our city. We're going to move off and go pillaging, I think. Lost some influence, or lower influence for... Let's pay him off. Don't want to risk that. We've got this... Let's try and take this little army out before they do anything stupid. We're just going to take this city quite quickly with the smaller army. They're going to move north, take the rest of the province, and then William is going to go after that larger army from Essex. And you are going after you. Hopefully they don't cross the river there. Upgrade you guys. Dorchester's ours. We can get rid of some of these buildings, I think. Patrols we'll get rid of. Workshop we'll get rid of. And then over here we've got this settlement. And we've got this one. So now all that's left is the rebels in between. Nice. All right, so we'll just get rid of Robert of Mortain, I think. I mean, he's got a lot of skills. Maybe we'll keep him, give him some troops in a few turns. But yeah, just need to focus on Lewton, Bodmin, and Tintagel there. Pencil? Not sure. Taking some hits there with this army. Oh, they have as well, so that's not the end of the world. Yes. Excellent research available. Cost recruitment. Let's go for this one, but I'm kind of curious. Warrior Society, food upkeep, no. Military prestige, raise a general to rank 10. All right. These could be quite good. I just don't have a general that's up to rank 10 at the moment. I've got the maximum number of governors as well. That's interesting. William is command 9. Okay. 2, 7, 3, 2, 3, 4, 7. Yeah, William needs a bit more experience, basically. Did I shout you? Not sure what you mean, Robert, Mr. Taylor. Love seeing all the old spellings of the towns from MA, so it's just copy and pasted in modern English, basically. They really didn't reinvent the wheel when settling in America. No, every time I look at a map of America, I always think, hey, isn't that town a little village just outside Surrey? I know where that is. It's in the UK. It's not in America. So Wessex has annexed Mercia. No way. Just when we literally took out their last settlement down here, they go and take over Mercia. Look at that. That is amazing. It just means, you know, we have to keep the campaign going to take over Wessex up here. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, cool. So, doing a bit more replenishment, but we're going to go for this town next, definitely. And then over here, I think I'm just going to start recruiting with this army. So we'll get some cheap stuff first. Some cheap levy units. Get those up to speed. And then we'll just meet up in the middle. I'll transfer them over. Because this is mostly retinue, isn't it? Yeah, so it could use a bit more levy. That would be nice. Skills for Eustace, which will go with Command 4. And Fitz Osborne is a governor, so we'll go with Forager, I think. In Exeter. Then, right, so... There was an army, right, it's up there. Okay, cool. So we'll go for Oxford. This unites the province, doesn't it? It does, so... Do that, and then we need to attack this army. And we're going to push across the river. But we've got them, at least, so... Yeah, let's just take them out. Decisive victory. I'm sure you keep calling me Robert of something. Terminator, sup man? Can you do updated guides for DEI? I'd love to, but honestly, I just don't have the time to. Those kinds of videos take a lot of effort. Scripting, the footage gathering. I might come back to it. I might do 1 or 2 here or there, but yeah, it's just gonna have to be a one-off, really. Right. So William is command 10 now. Okay, cool. What we want to do then is do this for the upkeep, and then research general to rank 10. Oh no, it's a different. It has to be a different general other than William, I think. With that, unfortunately. Alright, so we're just going to take out the King of Kent, who is hanging out just outside London on his own. Ding dong, the king is gone. We've got this army here as well from Huntendunster. Interesting. Let's go for Hartford here. And then maybe we can draw them towards us instead of going down for Chelmsford. Hopefully. I really hope so. Got this one here. Doing a bit of replenishment. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that as is.
We pledge your service to greater plunder. You can rely on us.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sucks. Yeah, dude, honestly, I would love to. Some of my favorite videos were making guides, guided faction kind of videos. That wasn't proper English. Video guides for various factions, specific factions, guides just generally about battles, battle mechanics. I love that kind of stuff. It's just it takes a long time to make them, and it doesn't keep up the viewership. So I just need to yeah, I'm doing a lot of the videos now that are more focused towards just talking about mods in different ways and playing them like I am today, basically. Replenishment, loyalty for Hughes. Okay, let's appease the church there. And then we're going to go for Lowton with this army. No way, dude. So Wessex have an army here in this final city. Well, we have them cornered. So that's good. But yeah, that is a large army there. Got a couple more units in this one. Keep up that replenishment. We'll meet in the middle and take Tintagel, I think, together. And then over here, we've got Oxford's been taken. Buckingham is not part of our province, so I'm not going to go up there. We're going to send this army towards St. Albans. And this one towards Chelmsford. Because I need to take this army out, really. Got Fitz Osborne has a skill, so we'll just do that. Damaged buildings in Lowton, which I will leave for now. Jesus, man, speak English. What are you up to these days, Robert Taylor? How is your life? Tell me. What is Robert Taylor up to? Has been using his gold to influence and sway others, so let's just counter their work. Walter requests some agricultural land, which is fine. Man, this is difficult. This army right here, I really want to take out, but yeah, I'm not sure how to do that just yet. This army I'm going to send to London. This one to Chelmsford. Take that back. And then we're going to just corner this one and then push into Kent. A bit of replenishment there. Fine. I think we'll go up to Buckingham, since Buckingham, so that's one of the last settlements for Kent as well. They only have 3 left here. Let's build this building as well. So we've got the patrols, grain pits. Let's go for grain pits. Hoi 4 with the 82 AD lads. Nice. Say hi to them for me.
I offer the chance of a lasting friendship.
A declaration of friendship with an Irish kingdom. Okay. I'm kind of down with that. Just increase the intriguing.
I offer the chance of a
Okay. Cool. That's fine. Let's see a downside with that.
My skills are growing.
Piety and prosperity. Sounds good. Economical with the truth. That's one way to put lying.
You can rely on us.
impossible.
Yeah, these guys are damaged.
Enemy blood will
Well, we might actually be able to take them on with that 16-unit army. Let's start moving this one out. Take Bodmin. Let's have a look and see what our chances are.
marching for
I mean, they're retreating, so
father.
we must have a pretty good chance. Yeah.
Success is rewarded.
Nice. Excellent, excellent. And then we're just gonna start besieging this city. I mean, they have a pretty stacked garrison, but
Plunder and
against this
glory.
one and this army, I think we have a pretty good chance.
Move up.
Yeah. Walter the Governor and it's Osborne the Bard. The General. Let's go for this one. Campaign movement range. Bodyguards and companions. Okay, cool. We can go down that line. Why not? And then this one we're gonna move towards St. Albans. And yeah, these two armies, I'm just going to destroy this one here in Tillburg pretty quickly. Yeah, classic AI cornering itself
For glory.
right there. And then with this one, we can start heading north towards Kent pretty quickly. William, retrain, and let's upgrade. Nice.
We'll see this through.
That's pretty good. We've got Kent kind of cornered here. So once they're taken out, I think we're going to have a nice open playing field against the rest of Essex and Wessex, but it's really Mercia.
Our foes shall fall. March on.
All right. Let's see what happens next. Okay, so this army is going to actually attack us. I mean, we have a pretty good chance. They have no cavalry. This is a open field battle. They're going to attack me, and I've got high ground. Okay, let's take this out. I'll be right back, guys. I'm just getting some water. Right, so we've got the high ground. They're coming towards us. This is going to be very easy, I think. Yeah, so we'll get the incline. Got a couple of units here. Here. That. We've got our axe units as well, which are much better kind of like flanking around, I think. In fact, let's just put them all on this side. Hidden a little bit there. And then we've got the cavalry, which we're going to try and push down this flank here. And the crossbows keep there, and the general obviously will kind of keep back. We're not going to commit him to anything crazy. All right, let's see what happens. Yeah.
Soon our blades will taste blood.
There are a lot of them, so this is going to be a little bit more on the difficult side, I think.
Spearmen! Up the pace, men! We concur!
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I'm just going to... Hold on, guys. 2 seconds. There we go. I was just getting lots of Discord messages. Need to turn that off. Hey, Romulus Battles. What's up, man? I'm taking some ranged hits, which isn't ideal, so it's gonna send the cav forward a little bit.
The enemy are upon us.
That nearly hit me!
Full gallop.
Our foes have surprised us!
Drive your mounts. Full gallop. Drive your mounts.
Try and cause some issues for the AI. Just not sure what to prioritize. Charge forward, maybe that would be nice, but
Spearmen!
no, I don't think it doesn't look like they're gonna do it.
Spearmen! The enemy are here? The enemy are on us! Here they come! Hold it! Safety, everyone!
All right, a couple of the units charged forward, which is good for me.
See, they flee before our might.
Spearmen! Spearmen! For enemy charge!
Up the pace.
For victory! Where's the fight? Move it, men! We got them! We're under fire!
Chosen by Odin.
Spearmen! Move it, men!
Commanders.
Yeah, I just don't want to really like commit the cav because they have a lot of infantry still up there.
Spearmen! Spearmen! Swordsmen! Enemy charge! Commander!
What do they have there? Right. Let's go for it. Let's try and get some charges into the enemy. Yeah, so a lot of them retreating here.
discovered the enemy's hidden units.
Lots of retreating units here as well. Try and get some units around.
Our general is under attack.
Levy Spearmen taking some hits there.
The battle is turning in our favor.
The troops are rallying. Where's the enemy?
Big blobs. Big blobs. Let's see if we can charge into the general over here.
See, they flee before our might.
Our general's starting to retreat here as well. Yep, there he goes. Then we can try and get the general charging into the final rear of this big blob over here. All right, let's go for a charge. If you're just joining, guys, you're asking where is Cody. He was on for a couple of hours with me very kindly, but he had to go. So if you watch the live stream after this is done, earlier in the video, you'll be able to see our chats about Total War, the state of the franchise, you know, obviously great mods like this, his work on Conquest 1066, like, yeah, you'll be able to see all of it. I think that's going to be really the end of this battle. Well, maybe not quite. Let's try and take this unit out. Nice. Yeah, lots of casualties there. Oh, they're all done. And that's it. All right. Where's Cody, and why do you only have one ranged unit in your armies? It's just this army, really. Usually I have about 4, but with this one, I was just recruiting kind of willy-nilly because I wanted to take this final corner of Devon. Oh, not Devon. The other side. What's it called? This side of the southwest of the UK base. I've forgotten the name now. All right, looks like we had a little rebellion. Eager for coin. Plus 20% corruption, all provinces. Damn. That's some heavy stuff right there. We'll take Bodmin here. Which, wow. It's a level 5 pasture. Or did we take the tin veins? I'm not sure. Anyway, Tintagel should fall now as well. Nice. And there you go, guys. We've giant hold. Yeah, okay. And I think we'll get rid of this one. We just need to. We've just small rebellion here. But otherwise, we've got the majority of the southern coast of England. Let's just finish these bits off. So we'll take St. Albans here. And then we've got a small army from Kent, which will push back with William. I say small, but it was the king's army there. And then we'll go for Wigan Mare there next. And we will start, I think, sending this army, Eustace, up towards the eastern coast to try and start taking some territory from Essex up here. If we can take them out next, then we should be in a pretty comfortable position. Yeah. But yeah, guys, so that's going to be, I think, the end of our stream today. We've made a ton of progress. This southern side of England is pretty much taken. So we came from Pevensey, which is here in stream 1 in the first part. We took Hastings, and then from Devon we also expanded out into Canterbury, and then up united the two forces to take London. And then we basically had this whole area, this region here with Winchester, etc. Then we kept pushing west with an army on this side, beating Wessex back, I think it was with William, while we had an army stationed in London. And then in this part, basically, part 2 of the campaign, we've continued the march west. We've expanded up a bit north as well. We destroyed most of Kent. We beat back a couple of armies from Essex. And from this faction here, Huntingdonshire, and then we've basically managed to take all of Wessex's land towards the west as well. So yes, guys, that's going to be the end of the stream today. Quite cool. The final part of this campaign will be on Saturday. So tune in for that if you want to see the rest of this campaign. If not, I'll see you tomorrow for a new video. So see you tomorrow for that. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.